I'd like to call the Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 meeting of the South Pasadena Public Works Infrastructure Commission to order. Welcome, everyone. The first item on our agenda is public comment, but before that, of course, we need to do the roll call. So, Philip, would you please do that for us?
Tonight we have two excused commissioners, Commissioner Michelle Hammond and Commissioner David Mailing. So taking roll call, Commissioner Dunlap.
Here.
Commissioner Abelson.
Here.
Commissioner Brunel.
Here.
Commissioner Kerwin.
Present.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Present.
Commissioner Trevino.
Present.
Commissioner Sharma.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right. Thank you very much. Next item up is the Pledge of Allegiance, and I guess I'm leading it. So everyone would please stand if you're able. Place your hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. All right, now back to the first item on our agenda is public comment. Do we have anybody in the audience who would like to speak on something that is not on the agenda, either live or? Oh, yeah. Please come to the step to the podium.
Yeah, if you can kind of talk towards this mic in the center of the table, this one right here.
Do I just pull it up?
Oh yeah, it's okay. You can fill it out.
Can I do like after? Okay.
I think this is the mic for our room.
Does that work as well?
It says you can stand here if you just enunciate. That will be for that microphone.
You make more sense.
I can just.
Yeah, stand as close as you can. That way.
See you and hear you.
You can get just us. Get into the record.
Just let us know your name and
Okay.
why you're here.
Hi, I'm Sadie Jefferson. I live on Ramona Avenue. I'm a parent of 3 young children. And I'm here to speak about 2 things. One, and I'm so sorry if you've been part of this email chain that I started, but it is about the intersection of Hawthorne and Costin at the backside of Arroyo Vista Elementary. There have been huge traffic concerns there. It is actually where the youngest learners enter the school, and there have been near fatalities and very dangerous situations as these kids are very small. There is no crossing guard or current safety measures in place. There is one painted red side of the sidewalk, but parents and people turn left, they turn right, kids almost get hit a lot. I have a petition back there I'm happy to circulate that about 100 parents have signed, representing about 140 students. These are just parents that walk. That does not include the parents who drop their kids off, which I can get more signatures. I yesterday drove down Marengo and noticed they have 7 crossing guards for Marengo Elementary compared to our 2 at Arroyo Vista. And I just want to better understand the process of allocating crossing guards. I know that this is probably not the case, but some parents feel that Arroyo Vista, because we have the highest percentage of renters in the city, and that we don't have the highest socioeconomic status of neighborhoods in the city, and Marengo does, that there's an unfair distribution and attention to Marengo Elementary versus Arroyo Vista. And parents are pretty upset about the current situation, again, at Hawthorne and Costin. The second issue I'm here to talk about is Ramona Avenue between Oak and Rollin. I live on that street. People regularly drive 40 miles per hour. Our speed bump situation is palm trees. We put palm tree leaves in the street and hope that people swerve. We have 26 young children under the age of 18 who are frequently playing out front. It is very dangerous. And so we have been advocating. I am new to the street. My understanding is about 10 years for speed humps. And we are looking just for some speed calming measures. I defer to you on what those are. People use that as a pass through, as you can imagine to go around Fremont. And there's a lot of congestion to, a lot of kids, Holy Family students and high schoolers are crossing the street. And so to also protect those students, would ask that the commission consider some speed calming measures. And then I'll just say, I love Mission Avenue, more businesses, more walkability. I know that's, part of what you're considering today. But thank you very much. And now I will go fill out my public comment part. Thank you.
Thank you very much
Thank
for
you for coming.
bringing both those issues to our attention. Do we have anyone else with us or via Zoom? With public comment not on the agenda? I seeing none. Okay.
There were public comments online, but, there's none on Zoom. Sorry,
Written.
written.
Okay, and you forwarded those to us and we've received those.
They're sitting in front of me.
Great. Okay, thank you, Philip. All right, with that, I'll close public comment. Next item up, number 2, is the selection of officers. We had this on our agenda last month, but in light of the attendance, we thought it was better to wait for more of a critical mass before moving forward with this. So with that, we're looking for a vice chair and a chair to lead us going forward.
Yes. So we if you want to start with vice chair, you can. So we're first looking for anybody with any nomination. So if anybody would like to nominate anybody on the board, you can do so now. Just a reminder, when you nominate somebody, they will have to accept in order to move forward with the motion. Or they can respectfully decline, and then we can wait until another nomination is offered, or somebody can volunteer, and then move forward with the motion.
Do we have any nominations or anyone who has an interest in being vice chair, which would typically lead to being chair next year? Silence. And we can't nominate someone who's not here, correct?
Yes, you can. And we should.
I have a nomination.
Okay.
I would like to nominate Commissioner Brunel.
Okay,
Commissioner Brunel, do you accept?
for what?
Vice chair.
Vice Chair.
Okay, yeah. Mhm.
All right. Wonderful. Do we have any other nominations? Okay.
So we do a quick, voice vote motion. We just say aye or nay. Commissioner Dunlap,
Aye.
Commissioner Abelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunel,
Aye.
Commissioner Kerwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Trevino,
Aye.
Commissioner Sharma.
Aye.
Okay, so, thank you. The motion passes unanimously to appoint Commissioner Brunel to vice chair.
All right. Thank you and congratulations. All right, moving on. Now we're looking for nominations or interest for chair.
Who is our current chair?
We don't have one. Eric's been acting and then I'm acting.
It's a new commission, so I think there were previously chairs of the respective.
Right.
committees.
Yeah.
I was the chair of the Public Works side of that, but then
There was them too.
yeah, so.
So I'll put my name in because I'm only here for the balance of the year.
Okay.
If someone has to nominate me, but I'd be happy to accept. Are there any other?
I'll nominate you.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, did Commissioner Kerwin nominate
Yes, Commissioner Abelson.
Abelson? Okay, we're gonna do, I take, by the way, if you accept the nomination, I take that as a second, just so I can. So we're gonna do a quick roll call. Commissioner Dunlap,
Aye.
Commissioner Abelson,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunel,
Aye.
Commissioner Kerwin,
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez,
Aye.
Commissioner Trevino,
Aye.
Commissioner Sharma.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We have appointed a chair, Commissioner Abelson.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Kerwin, and thank you all. I'll do my best for the next, 6 months?
No, 5 years.
Sorry. And you could say you've been the first. You were the first.
Look at that.
chair of-
I think there's a special trophy for
The
that.
the first, you were chair and the first vice chair. Congratulations.
All right, thank you all for that. Moving right along. Item 3 on our agenda, Mission Street, Slow Street Road Diet Plan Review. And so, Ted, will you be presenting? And I would just ask if at some point during your presentation, you tell us what you're looking for from us specifically, because it's a big topic with lots of tentatives. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a big topic. We're talking about, Mission Street. There's a lot of elements of this project. We have a specific topic tonight. Your agenda packet, and I call it rather large because we just wanted to give you all the documentation that has passed through, MTech over the past 2+ years. We're going to do, Mission Street work. So, actually, let me start with the presentation. So I think a little quick history, is best in order, first. Many of you probably heard about the Mission Street project. What it started out as is, a larger project that incorporated a lot of different elements, called the Slow Street program. And Mission Street was a part of it. We had some residential slow streets that were a part of it. Parklets and outdoor dining were another component of it. And we've been working on this for the last few years. Much of our initial focus was taken up by the residential street project. We had temporary traffic calming elements installed on Grand Avenue, Oak Street, Hermosa Street. But another part of that project was to take a look at Mission Street, and the idea was to implement a temporary road diet as a demonstration project to do a couple things. First, slow the traffic, make Mission more of a pedestrian, cycle-friendly street, and also encourage business owners and other property owners use of the street for more open street concepts. So outdoor dining, outdoor areas for people to hang out, areas of interest, things like that. You can go to the first slide, thanks. That pivoted quite a few times during the process. We initially had proposed that Mission Street would become we would use a temporary restriping along Mission Street, something that would last for about 6 months, and then we would remove it just as a test case. As we got more into the process, we started to find there were some issues with that. So for example, one idea was that we were going to green the median with these temporary pots and basically create medians along Mission Street. Once we had done our site distance analysis of what that would do for driveway turns and people trying to navigate along Mission Street, that fell away pretty quickly. What we were trying to emphasize is not a large reduction in parking, but opening up some of the space along the curb line so that we could set up a number of parklets. And you'll see a few of them out there right now. There's 3 to 4 parklets that are used for outdoor dining on Mission Street. And so what became of that was and it's in your packet, is an original plan. Not the attachment 1, but I think it's attachment. Forgive me, I gotta jump to it here to see. It was attachment 4. So it was basically a weaving, sort of a weaving pattern along the street. And the reason it was weaving, and what I mean by weaving is that the lanes would kind of dive north and south because they were creating pockets for parklets and also pockets for diagonal parking. As we were working through the entire Slow Street program and we discussed the program in council, we learned that the council's direction is that they envision the change to Mission Street to likely be permanent in nature one day, whether it's a result of this project or some future project where we're doing civil construction and changing sidewalks and changing intersections. The idea is that Mission Street would become a new type of environment. And it wouldn't be exactly like this, but some of the inspirational references we have are like State Street in Santa Barbara, that type of thing. And so our focus shifted a bit. We decided, well, if we're gonna do this change to Mission Street, it should be towards the eye of doing something more permanent, not something that's done temporarily with either tape or, you know, temporary paint that will have to be kind of grinded out one day. But, when we, in a future, capital project, we're going to reconfigure Mission Street. There was a thought that we still want that, temporary aspect of being able to undo something that didn't work. So what we settled on was, we will commit to, doing basically a slurry project along Mission Street, where we take a street that's in relatively good condition, fix some of the, you know, underlying civil aspects of the street, slurry it, and then restripe it. And when we restripe it, we will restripe it with a road die and take it from 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction, to a 2-lane street with, you know, 1 lane in each direction. And the advantage of that is we get the result of what we're looking to do long term, but it's not a large CIP project where we're doing, you know, major construction. That major construction can come later if this were to work. But it wouldn't be a temporary project. It would actually be a conversion of the street to a 2-lane street. And that came about, around breaking that here, that decision.
Excuse me.
Sure.
Is that starting at Fair Oaks through and up to Meridian or to the travel track?
That's a great question. So actually, the original concept was, now to Meridian.
Okay.
But since then, and what you'll be looking at tonight, we've expanded it. This is part of, the MTech discussion last year, was to actually expand the street past Fair Oaks towards, off Brent, towards Garfield Park and all the way. And then on the, west side, all the way to Orange Grove. So that's the area we're talking about now. So what came out of that was a discussion with MTech. And MTech's advising was that perhaps the sort of weavy nature of the design we had come up with wasn't the best approach. They recommended that we have a consistent cross-section across the entire corridor. So 1 lane each direction and a 2-way turn lane in the middle. Now, one of the interesting aspects about Mission Street is that it has a lot of driveways. There's a lot of businesses and there's some, you know, multifamily housing. And so one of the challenges was designing a striping pattern that would accommodate all the left and right turns that are happening. The weaving pattern made that a little bit difficult. So actually the design where we have consistent, what we call like a 3-lane road, 1 lane each direction and in the center 2-way turn lane, allows a lot of flexibility in the design. So that's what we started to move towards. We took this back with our designer, and our next step with MTech was actually come back to show all the critical cross sections of the street. And that exhibit is also in your packet here. It's attachment number 5. And what it looks like is basically showing what it looks like when we take a cutout of the street. So,
I know you mentioned 4 and 5.
you know, I think it'd be helpful to jump. Do we have that capacity?
Yeah.
Both the staff and board.
Yeah.
Let's jump to, just to sort of navigate smoother here. Let's navigate to attachment 4 to show the original director plan. Bear with us here, we're new to this, we couldn't make it into the council chambers tonight. Yeah. Attachment 4. If you open up the bookmarks on the left, it might give you some, like, oh.
I'll just go to the website.
Oh, God, do you have all these attachments open on top?
Yeah.
Oh, let's just jump through all that.
Yeah, which one?
Let's keep going right here. Oh, back 1 more. So this is the directive, here's the directive plan. You can see this sort of weaving. We're in Orange Grove. Bill, can you jump down a page?
Yeah.
And this really emphasizes it here. I'm gonna leave the mic. But you can see, we have our parklets. These are areas where we have our parklets or proposed parklets or existing parklets. And you can see how the center line kind of weaves back and forth along the roadway. And that was not the preferred option by MTech. So we took this back, and when we came back to MTech, we had the next extension. Can you jump to the next tab? And this is basically to take a look at what does Mission Street look like, what's next? Because the direction of MTech was, let's do this 3-way lane, and let's try to put in 2 bike lanes inside. And that is in accordance with our bicycle master plan. It envisions Mission Street as a green lane bike street, so there's bike lanes all the way down Mission Street. And there already is bike lanes on Mission Street from San Marino to about Garfield Park, right? The idea would be to continue it and connect it across the city, which is the ultimate goal. So really what we're doing here is showing MTech, well, where are our conflicts? Where the street is very narrow, it might be difficult to fit bikes. And I think the most critical spot, if you jump down the page, was Fremont Avenue, because we showed it red, in a really tight spot there. So along the way, we're considering other alternatives. We had completed a study with Iteris that we're not really gonna go into tonight, but we have it in the packet and we have the slides from the meeting, because we spent a lot of time on that tech, about what it would look like if we actually closed Meridian Avenue. As part of this project. Now, our general plan envisions that happening one day, but to my earlier point, the way we had segmented this project is this will be a striking project to demonstrate what a road diagram Mission Street will look like. We're leaving some of these larger, sort of much more significant elements to a later capital project. So it was decided that we wouldn't necessarily close Meridian Avenue. The study showed that it's feasible. It does have traffic impacts, as you would imagine, but they're not so significant that you can't do that. It was just out of the scope of what we're trying to embark on the project. We have a lot of information on that. We can go into detail if you so choose, but it's already been happening. So that brought us to what we are asking tonight. So let's jump to the first attachment, the direct compliance.
And Ted, just to clarify, apologize.
Yes.
The closure of Meridian between Mission and El Centro, that is not a topic for tonight. That is not anything you want input from us on tonight.
Yeah, we already gathered that input from MTech. We went through that presentation. We provided the slides for lengthy discussion on it.
I recall.
If you'd like to, but it's not, if you see our plan, it's not our proposed plan for what our next steps would be.
Okay.
And just a clarification, are we thinking about making Diamond a one-way, all the way?
Not in this project.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a possibility, or but not.
I only bring it up because I know someday that large development, their school district will probably happen.
Yeah, and so.
And when it does, it's just gonna create a nightmare for traffic in that area.
That was brought up when that project got entitled. It didn't wind up being a recommendation from the traffic analysis there, but if that project were to reevaluate how large the project is and how many units they have, then that traffic impact analysis will be reevaluated also. And so this is, you haven't seen these yet. These are our new directive plans for Mission Street, incorporating the MTech feedback. And I apologize with the count. With the commission transition, you haven't all been privy to those discussions, but that was kind of the point of me giving you a little bit of background and catch up a little bit. I'm happy to entertain questions. And what we're looking at here, and there's been a few refinements on this last couple months, is the recommended new striking pattern for Mission Street. Okay. Now, this is a concept plan. It's also directive plans. What has yet to come is an actual plans, specifications, and estimates set that we would have to develop from here on out. There's a lot of steps to do that. But with your recommendation tonight or in further discussion, we would start the process of incorporating this into the capital improvement program. We've already started looking for a budget, and basically this will become part of the city's street improvement program we talked about last year. I know there's a question last meeting, it was you, Commissioner Kerwin, about why isn't Mission Street in the CIP? And this is exactly why. Some projects that are in such an early preliminary or environmental design stage, you may or may not put it into the CIP. But basically, what we're looking for is your input on putting this into the CIP. And if there's any really flaws in what we're doing here, this isn't the last opportunity that people have. We still have to design this. Engineers have to put pen and paper and make sure that this is actually going to work. We've run a modeling, which we will be talking about tonight on this road diet, But what we're asking for you is your recommendation on this design.
So what I'm looking at here in the green lines, are we taking out all of the K rails?
No, and I'll get to that in one moment.
Oh,
So,
all right.
yeah, thank you, actually, so I'm gonna skip around a little bit, let me see here. Actually, this is a good time to go for it, let's jump to the plan. So it's a few sheets, so what you're seeing here is, orange grove. And then it comes up to this line, and this is Mission Meridian. And then the next sheet is where you can see your. Okay, so let's just jump to the next sheet, we'll come back to it slower.
You don't have to take them off.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, you like that.
Ted, is that,
Build on that.
is that what we have here?
Yes, and that'll be pretty obvious, you can look at down there.
Okay,
Easier.
thanks.
If we have any comments on any of this, do we comment as we're going or wait till?
No, I think it's perfect. I had, we haven't talked about with regard to the feasibility study, but what it really makes sense was to sort of quickly walk through this. Then we can talk about the modeling study and then we can get into the details. So feel free to run out some general questions, but if we're gonna get into sort of like different fine detail, then we pause on that, so we talk about how this came about.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest maybe we, if we need clarification on something, fine. Other than that, let's wait.
Yeah, that's something I did.
Okay.
Do there. So let's go to the next page just to show you where we are here. So, here's the other side of Mission Meridian. The light blue is the existing part list. So we have one here at Jones, across the street here, at, Arrow, and this is La Narca. And then, there's an empty spot in the middle we'll talk about. Anything that's dark blue is a possible future project to create some more space. So, you've got one here, which would be across, which would be outside of the school district project, You got one here, which is basically in front of the Chamber of Commerce in South Pasadena. Here's Fremont Avenue. By the way, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, there are RFPs in this plan at Diamond Fairview. We'll talk about that in a minute. Oh, thank you. I have a case so far. Let's look down to our sheet. And then, here's Fremont, Mount. This is the existing part outside of Shiro's. And then the project moves through Mission. Through Fairways. Here's Travis over here. And then, it continues down to Grant, where we, that is a project, and then you can actually go back. So, how do we come up with this plan? So, as I mentioned, a lot of this was from MTech's input about what this should look like as far as the load that I had. There was quite a bit of business outreach some time ago about use of the street for parkless or parking. Our consultant is going to do much more business outreach, a business focus one-on-one, and even sort of like a corridor moving. So having a conversation with the businesses between Mountain and Barrows, and having a conversation with businesses that are around the Mission Meridian. That will happen during the PSNE design process. Because literally, this has to go from this concept into an early design where we have to actually survey the topographic survey of the street. And then we're actually laying out what this looks like on a inch by inch basis. And then bringing that over to the businesses to show them how they get it. So that is our consideration. I know it's gonna be something that we talk about tonight, feedback from you, but that's how it's put the way of the next steps. Now, there was some consideration about what the road diet should look like as far as its performance on, the volume of traffic and the delay. If you can, Bill, if you can jump back to the presentation. So, the second study that I traced beyond the closure of Mission Meridian Avenue was taking a look at, how do we configure the road diet here? And most of it is, not obvious, but it's pretty straightforward. The majority of the roadway is a one-lane direction with a two-way turn in the middle. There's only some areas of the corridor that really need sort of special consideration. One of those was the area between Mound and Farrows. So in our earliest design, we didn't touch that area. We left it as two lanes each direction. The idea was that as people are coming off of Farrows and either heading west, there's not really a lot of time for them to understand that they're in a one lane configuration, meaning they're coming off of Farrows. And, the lanes is gonna narrow, because on the east side of Farrows, it's two lanes. So that comes down to one lane. So that was a big consideration. What do we do between those two things? Another consideration is what do we do around Fremont Avenue? So Fremont Avenue currently has, a configuration where you're heading in the westbound direction. You have enough room to turn right, go straight, there's a left turn pocket. So if we're gonna reduce the lanes and add in bike lane, we're gonna lose some space. So what do we do in that area? So the alternatives that we're evaluating were this. The first alternative cited that was keeping the two westbound travel lanes between Fremont Avenue and Farrows Avenue. So around that city hall area. Then the other alternative was turning it into one. So we did that analysis first, and then from that analysis, yielded another alternative, which was keeping that one westbound turn lane, just like an alternative A, but adding an eastbound right-hand pocket of the Mission Street, Fremont Avenue intersection. And we'll show you what that looks like when we get back to the drawing class. But what I want to emphasize as far as the study goes, if you don't mind, giving me the next table, and this is in your packet, is that these are the existing conditions for the most significant intersections along Mission Street. So for those of you that are familiar, when we're looking at strictly intersection performance, we're not talking about necessarily intersection safety for pedestrians or cyclists. We're strictly talking about timing delays for performance. We rate the intersections between A and F. A being the best, and F obviously being worse. So the existing condition of intersection, and this is how the criteria for the evaluation, the level of service for these intersections is C. And then at Orange Road, which has a lot lighter volume than Farrows, Fremont, rating performance than A. So this is in the AM peak hour, like in the morning, and this is in the afternoon. So the level of service drops in Farrows in the afternoon. What you see on this slide, the next couple of slides, is how do the various alternatives affect that level of service. So with your existing level of service here, if you implement alternative one, these are the delays that are caused. And so you have your level of service drop, not significantly, but drop slightly. C and C stay the same, but C goes to D for Meridian and A goes to B for Orange Road. And this is basically the delay in seconds that you're adding as a result of making that change.
So could you
Yes.
just define level of service? So that means when you're at Mission and Fair Oaks, you're waiting an extra 33.7 seconds, or like what is the delay? What does the service mean?
So this is the delay that's caused, yes, you're waiting that long time. It's not extra long time. That's how long the vehicles are delayed. And on a standard level of whether an intersection is signalized or unsignalized, there's a grade given to that level, that amount of delay. So in this case, a 33 scores a C.
So zero delay means the car's just moving, right?
Yes.
What's your baseline?
But yeah, an A means the cars are moving pretty easily.
Okay, thanks.
So in this case, with the alternative one, you're adding a 0.7 second delay, but you're keeping your level of service pretty much the same. Your 0.7 seconds is basically nothing. But in this case, for Mission Meridian, you're adding a 15-second delay, which is fairly significant. It takes it down a whole other level. So there's some room within the level of service for a certain amount.
Hey, Ted, I'm going, I have just clarifying question,
Yes.
promise. What's the difference between the existing condition and alternative one?
So the existing condition alternative one is,
Because we have two westbound lanes now, right?
sure. That's a good question. That slide showed the difference between the road diets. So the difference between the existing condition and alternative one is a 4-lane Mission Street versus a 2-lane Mission Street everywhere but between Fremont and Farrows. So this is implementing the road diet. In
Okay,
other words, like, the existing condition is what is happening right now. And alternative one is the road diet from Orange Grove
all right.
all the way to Brent.
But those,
With the,
those two blocks stay the same.
the two blocks.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Now, I just need to say that this isn't our, this is only one of our concerns, right? This is a road diet. The whole point of the project is to slow down traffic, bring more open street space. So it's expected that your level of service will drop. In fact, you could argue that's one of the intentions of the project. It's good to evaluate what actually happens and how significant. So we're not looking to not slow the traffic down and make it, the level of service unchanged, it's just a consideration, right? Because when you're talking about road diet and your understanding of what's, the motivation for doing this road diet, one of the arguments is gonna be what's gonna grind traffic to a halt, and that is the case, right? So let's take a look at the next slide. So alternative 1A is that scenario where, we don't preserve the 2-lane between, Fremont and Farrows, we do take it down to 1 lane. And you can see, as expected, your delays increase a bit. Instead of having a CC, A, you've got a CDA. So you're adding, some delays. You have the same delay in Meridian, as you'd expect, because you didn't really change anything between alternative 1 and alternative 1A and Meridian. But with, reducing that 2 lanes between Barrows and Fremont to 1 lane, you are increasing your delay at Mission Fremont. And so now you've added almost 12 seconds. So that puts you in the PM hour, that puts you down the level of, E. Which, E and F is sort of a pretty core function intersection. But the funny thing about level of service evaluation is that, if you already have, an E or an F, there's not much you can do to make it work. So sometimes when we do these traffic impact analysis and a developer is building a project next to an intersection of 30 and a half, they haven't really caused any problem, even if they've added a lot more line because it's already enough. So that kind of was a little bit of a, not a flaw in evaluation, but just consideration to have. And so this table is really helpful because it shows, for better or for worse, what happens along the entire Mission Street route. So how long it takes to go eastbound in the morning or westbound in the morning along Mission Street, and what these alternatives change that. So you're spending about another half minute going from one side to the other, with these alternatives. Again, take from that what you will, the idea of the project is actually slow the street down and, have some of this in that. Yes.
How many like unintended consequences or alternate paths are they evaluated? So when we look at this and we say, all right, we're gonna do this diet on Mission, are we looking at the potential of increased traffic on, let's say, El Centro or any of the other east-west corridors that people might now think present a better option for getting through the city?
Sure. Yeah, in this particular model, they didn't do that. That's something that we can do. In fact, we're doing a study just like that, for another part of town to see what happens when, a closure of one's area occurs. That's something that we can do. Our assumption was that it was fairly negligible because these level services didn't change that much. Meaning that, people are in the model, at least, the idea that people are still moving along the street and just, moving a little bit slower.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Chad, I have it's been a while since I've read a synchro sheet, so maybe, Bassam or someone knows, you know, when they calculated level of service with 2 traffic lanes, did they take into consideration where even though it's 2 lanes, you have a vehicle turning just stopped in the number 1 lane? So it's actually functioning as 1 lane because the vehicle turning left or right is blocking the through lane. Did they capture that? You know, the picture looks, you know, might look so good, but the second you have a vehicle stop to turn left or turn right, you're effectively a 1 lane street today.
I believe they did, and the fact that you really wanna see it, you can, we captured a video of the synchro model. And what I believe they did was they randomly had vehicles and they kind of identified these vehicles with a different color that would make a movement like you're talking about, that would stop. And then you have some sort of queuing impact as a result of that stop vehicle. And then once that vehicle could actually turn, then it releases. So yeah, they basically, they ran, you know, built variables for models to accommodate that type of thing. It wasn't just a static model in terms of how the car is moving through. So we could share that video, we can kind of see it if you look closely, because it's basically a big green screen in the road and then kind of apart. And we've got the picture in the for you.
We could have another special meeting on that.
When we get to that.
Go ahead, Ted, I'm sorry.
No problem. Let's jump to the next slide. So then, you know, in evaluating alternative 1A and seeing what the impacts at Fremont would be, that's what how alternative 1B came about, which is just a call back. That was adding right in the pocket at Mission Creek Fairmount Ave. So in other words, allowing people to go from east to south, which is actually a pretty popular. Yeah. And we'll just look at that when we look at the driver.
By the empty lot.
Exactly, by the Christmas tree empty lot there, yeah. So, alternative B, you see very similar to alternative A, but improves this E level of service. Was it E on alternative 1A, comes up back up to a D. So it makes, you know, a slight improvement there. And then this is basically the same table you just saw for the whole corridor, but with alternative B added. And so you can see, you know, you've got about a half minute added to the AM peak hour and about a minute added to the PM peak hour. So.
Question, and I'm tipping my hand, but why would you not implement that right turn pocket? Is there some negative impact to that?
Well,
It seems to be a benefit.
yeah, and that was the issue was if you call back to that red square on the cross section where you only had so much room on Fremont, because there's existing bulb house at Fremont, you narrow the roadway. And so, you know, you lose, when we look at the plans and see, you sort of reduce your options, what you can do with that cross section when you add that right turn. So yeah, you know, if you want to fit in bike lanes, turn lanes, things like that, then that's what makes it a little more difficult. You have to make things a lot tighter.
Okay,
That's the difference.
but there's room for the bike lane and the right turn pocket.
There is, and
Okay.
that's why we add and do spoiler.
Sorry.
Is we know you're still right after it. We pick one alternative 1B, that's what we see in the plans here. So we map the design alternative 1B, and that's, you know, that includes looking at this status here. I don't think there's another slide on this. Okay, yeah, let's go back. If you could switch back over to the plans, attachment 1.
Well, you're not really keeping the bike lane, you're just adding conflict trusses to allow for the pocket. It, the bike lane actually just drops off before.
Well, that's the point, is that whether you're gonna maintain a dedicated lane or whether you're gonna add that conflict striping. That's what I wanted to show when we get into it. That's a
Okay.
good point, you can hear that. So let's just jump to that, because I think we're talking about it right now. We go to page 2. Thanks, Phil. Yes, we're talking about right here. So, you know, what that does is, just like, Vice Chair now mentioned, you basically have to add this conflict strategy so that vehicles can move through this part here and make a right turn. Versus just maintaining the bike lane straight through, not having a right turn, people making a right.
So the lane's still there, right? It's just, for lack of a better term, broken up so that it's clear to people they can cross over to get to the right turn pocket.
Right, the difference is whether people are making a right turn through bike lane this way and causing traffic.
Right.
And allowing, this, which is, right now you have, parking here.
Right,
So you might have parking reduction. And that's.
Okay.
Because a lot of people use that.
right, got it.
There's also the bus stop there as well. Did they take that into account? How often does that bus run?
We have I think that's the driveway, and I think we have the bus stop, is it on that side or is it there?
I think
It
it's.
says right there,
inside.
where your
Yeah,
finger is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, part of, this consideration is, and we haven't gotten this yet, is how, other future projects will make modifications to the street. So, for example, under the Fremont Avenue project, one of the things that we're doing is, relocating bus stops for that purpose. So, yeah, you have that bus stop issue here, that was something that would have to be worked out in the PSD phase about whether, this, striping pattern can be modified to accommodate where the bus lands. But generally, what we're trying to do under our other transportation projects is move bus stops on the far end of the intersection. So in this case, I think you already have your bus stop on this side of Fremont, but one of the things we would move the bus stop on this side under our future project.
No thought about taking out the bump, is there?
We did think about it, but, that's really a matter of, whether we wanna make changes to the pedestrian, crossing here, and this does happen in the intersection, it's heavily traversed, so having that more narrow, shorter crossing distance is helpful in application. So that's, we could stay on Fremont, or we could jump back to Orange Road and sort of walk through it. Sorry, you could, stay on that attachment, but let's go to page 1. So, one thing you'll notice here is, again, the original plan was to start the road diet at Meridian. So you actually didn't see much of a change at Orange Road. What you would see is the transition, and it happened about here, where we started to go from a 4-lane road to a 2-lane road. What came out of our evaluation of the terrace and the competition with MTech was it actually makes sense to push the whole project out to Orange Road, so that your 2-lane configuration starts right here. And that actually makes sense for the future of Mission Street, because one of our capital projects right now is reconfiguring, Mission, Arroyo, and Pasadena. And so, making this configuration here would make it a lot simpler to actually turn this into a 2-lane road in the future, once the Mission, Arroyo, Pasadena intersection is complete. Would be also be a 2-way, or a 2-lane road, wouldn't be a 4-lane road at that location. What that means is, we're actually converting this, which is currently, a left and a right turn when you're coming south Orange Road, to only a right turn. And so you'd have to be in this lane, you'd be 1 lane, and you wouldn't have 2 cars turning here, you have 1. And then over here, you have 1 lane, and transitions into this 1 lane here. Yes.
Ted, quick question for you. I'm just noticing, like, in the cases where there's parking, on the street, is there a particular reason why the bike lane isn't flip parking in the bike lane are
Yeah.
flipped position, like,
Yeah.
otherwise?
Same question.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
they're good questions.
That's absolutely a great question.
Yeah,
I'd like to know.
that's been a really popular configuration theme. It wasn't recommended it wasn't recommended by the consultant in this case. We have seen it a lot. I think primarily it was just it's a preference, it's sort of a design preference as to whether you have cyclists sort of moving past the cars, where you do have a lot of short trips on Mission Street. So you have people who, you know, are coming to have dinner, coming to have coffee, they're getting in and out of their vehicles a lot. So I think that was one of the considerations in terms of having the bike lane, you know, not having it separated and having it in, having it outside the cars.
I think you would also need additional room for a buffer.
Yeah.
You know, to open your car door, so like curb to curb, you might not have enough space to have that bike lane and the buffer. And then in advance of driveways, you're gonna lose parking because you won't be able to have a car stopped right at the driveway. Cause if you have a cyclist on the curb, then the vehicle's gonna be blocking the view of
Oh,
the cyclist.
yeah, visibility issue.
Right, and so we could prioritize safety and remove that parking. However, I think with the businesses, it might be a harder sell, at least at first, to have that kind of parking.
And this configuration does remove parking. The original configuration where we had angled parking and sort of that EV design lost a little bit of parking. This loses some more. I don't think we have accounts prepared. I don't think we have tonight for you, but we have prioritized the consistent cross section and the separated bike lanes in those locations over parallel.
So currently in how it's proposed, there's no protection. It's just a striped bike lane with no buffer or no vertical element.
That's right. It's a 5-foot bike lane, in some cases it's 6, and I think closer to Fairfield, spot 7. But to Fisher Knoll's point, it doesn't have that authentication, simply because of the cross section.
Just because there's not enough space.
That's right.
Okay, how wide are the lane widths, like in?
In most locations, they're 11-foot through lanes with a 10-foot two each.
Okay, would you consider 10-foot lanes?
We could, that's pretty tight, and I think, you know, with the experience of the Mission Street drivers already being put into a one-lane configuration, and you have people who are entering and exiting the lane. We thought, and because 10 of the applicant when we go, we thought 11 made sense of nature.
Okay, also traffic moving.
Well, the idea is that, again, that in the grand scheme of things, that we would not have Mission Street be a truck route anymore.
Okay.
That's not something that we may or may not take on this project, but the idea is that we understand that we don't necessarily need that east-west, truck route.
The thought of putting the bike lane back on El Centro doesn't cut it.
It could work, you know, it's sort of a different configuration. It would go back to sort of a fundamental discussion, like, we want to do a road diet on the street.
Like putting the bike lane on Grand.
Right, well, that was
All
a
right.
different sort of story.
Different story.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ted.
So let's go to the question, right, I'll put the next one here. Oh, sorry, let me finish up over here. So let's see how this connects. This is pretty straightforward. We got 8-foot parking, 6-foot lanes, 11-foot through lane, 10-foot turn. There was some thought with back and forth on this left turn at Mission and Meridian, but also we thought it made sense to maintain that left turn. Just to reduce the queuing that could happen at the railway tracks. We don't want to lower the performance here in addition to the delay that's caused by the trains. Come to the next slide, please. And so here you see, that we're maintaining, well, we have, right now, this is the configuration almost. What you'll have is, you have your vehicles right up against the, parklets. And so the idea here is not just creating the bike lane for the parklets, providing some space between the vehicles and the parklets. So if you ever sat in those parklets, you know that if you're having coffee or staring right into the eyes of the person who's, you know, stopped at the light, this creates a little bit more space and sort of addresses some of the concerns that the outdoor dining folks have with how close they are to the street. So here, this is really just a sort of business relationship type decision. We've talked to the property owner and the businesses here. They do appreciate the 2 parking spaces that this area yields. So we may or may not carry that part approval. It's really just about a conversation with the businesses. It doesn't really impact our design that much, whether that's there or not. And then these would be, new markets, really a conversation with, the developer here, and if this makes sense for them. We think it does based on what they're trying to accomplish with this, mixed use development. And the same thing here. But what you're seeing is a 5-foot bike lane on this side, 11-foot through lanes, and a 10-foot two-way turn. And that's pretty much the configuration that's carried through here. It gets a little bit wider here with a 12-foot two-way turn lane. You got a high concentration of driveways in this area. And then we covered Fremont Avenue. This is our tightest spot. At one point, we were looking at 4-foot bike lanes here, but instead, to your point, we just reduced the through lanes to 10 feet. So we could give that extra foot back to the lanes, give them 5. So you got a 10-foot through lane with a 10-foot turn pocket and a 10-foot right turn.
I think I'm just really concerned with that intersection, like as a cyclist. If I'm riding there and someone is weaving in to make a right turn. I think, I mean, if this is the design that the commission wants to go with, I would highly suggest adding significant signage. There needs to be driver education. I don't know if there's any type of possibility to do like any type of protection, like even just like flexible bollards or something
Yeah.
like that. Or any like, even like low profile treatments can sometimes be helpful, even like layered asphalt or like really like simple stuff that could be done.
That'd be great. We actually looked at 3 different configurations here. We had, basically, I'm trying to recall what they all look like. But we tried a couple different things without this look. This turned out to be the best option. We can plot those other ones. I'm happy to grab that graphic for our team and share out like we have here tonight. But certainly some of the pavement treatments would be something that we would come up with in the PSC process. See how it goes.
Is this design similar to what's on Monterey, the portion that was repaved, where you install the bike lane? Is it a similar approach? Specifically at intersections? Because I remember seeing multiple locations that kind of, you used a technical term, but the broken up bike lane as you
Yes.
approach the,
You do have that, for the most part, you don't have any major crossing because that goes from, on Monterey from Pasadena, the bike lane starts to the, westerly limits.
right,
So you really just have these broken, lanes like Brunswick, Colby, other stop signs.
Yeah, there's only one stop sign at that,
Sure.
in that whole path.
So yeah, that similar type of broken configuration, but
and we have that on El Centro too. At different intersections, that same concept. Right, we just don't have the green painted bike lane, but the bike lane sort of opens up or breaks up as you get to an intersection so that you can make the turn.
exactly, similarly, rainbow,
Right.
something like that. That's the idea, and, depending on how you're gonna deal with your vehicle conflicts at an intersection, we actually had these, you were in the original design, because we wanted to emphasize for, visibility for cyclists, for
Right.
drivers, and making it clear that they were riding with bike lane.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there's a couple different configurations on how to handle that intersection.
Because if there's no right pocket, they're turning right from the through lane, correct?
That's right,
In front of the bicyclists and
Yeah.
across the lane.
right.
Okay.
Are we eliminating all deliveries then off of Mission?
No, if you're a truck and you're delivering something, you basically have a delivery manifest, you can drive whatever you need to deliver. Removing the truck route just removes it as your pathway to get to the location you're on. If mission, your destination, you can drive a mission truck.
Are there any certain hours that trucks can make deliveries? Like, do you regulate that? Or-
We don't, right now, Mission Street is the truck route. with our houses established, I don't know that was stuff.
But so if you're gonna be removing the truck route designation, but like obviously still allowing deliveries, would you consider like certain times for?
We could do very differently for, so, you know, if you're Mission Tile, you're getting a, 3 day delivery from somewhere else in the country, we get it late morning. Even us having a yard on, Mission Street, that's difficult for us, when we get vehicles delivered, they say, we're gonna be there sometime on that day, and we have no idea.
Yeah.
when, so they drive it off, so it can be difficult to coordinate, and things. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. And we jump to the next slide. And so you can see, we continued back to our preferred dimension, which is the 6-foot bike lane, 11-foot through lane, and 10-foot two-way turn lane. And that's pretty consistent through here, except for a couple locations that are narrowed down by. I should note that the current plan at Mission Street at the gas station. Michael can help me on this if I'm wrong, is that they're actually gonna move their second driveway on Mission. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah,
Closest one to the intersection.
right, so there's only one driveway on Mission with that shed on it, so that doesn't really impact our design at all, but it just makes it a little bit less. There. And they're doing that on our fourth and remodel the station. And so if you recall from, if you were on the website and you saw from a much earlier, version of this, the road diet stopped here, and this is where it became 4 lanes again. So with our study and with NTEX advising, we're carrying this all the way through to connect it. Really the most interesting thing that happens is right here. So, we don't have the cross section.
Ted, can you,
Oh.
before you skip ahead, can you talk about mound?
Sure.
I see instead of a left turn pocket, you have a shared through left. And
Right here.
yeah, like why that, and why not make it a left turn lane, and then you have the number 1 lane, you go through it and you pull in.
We talked about this a lot with Mike there, and really what it came is that they expected the wing on, to the left turn on Barrows to exceed this in some cases. And so they wanted to provide capacity back through.
Okay.
To deal with it in that way. So we had the exact same comment. We're not familiar with this, we talked about this, and this might be confusing, but that was really the idea of what happened, with that, the left turn impacts on Barrows.
Okay, so if you were, say, driving and pulling into that lane. I'm just trying to think what would happen if you were following a vehicle that pulled into that lane because you wanted to make a left on Fair Oaks, and then they wanted to make a left on Mound. You would then stop behind that vehicle until they made a left turn on Mound, or
Yeah.
either you pull out.
It can be a little bit, I guess the idea is that most people are gonna drive straight. And then if they're new to the configuration, they're gonna come through straight and expect to be able to take a left turn. And if the queuing is pretty far back here, then they're gonna try to weave in. If they're more familiar with the configuration and they're looking ahead, they're gonna see that this is full and that they have to basically get over here. So it is a problem. But without this, the thought was that this might be an issue, anyway.
Does it queue there today?
It does, I haven't seen it queue back to this, location before. But we do see it queuing, people to get around.
So I just say, I echo your concern, and maybe we can save this for their comments, because I have a thought on that.
Sure, yeah, that'd be helpful. So just at the Mission Street, we have our 6-foot bike lane on the north, we have our 1 through lane, our left turn lane in Barrows, and through lane here. We gave a lot of thought to this because this is the configuration we're talking about, but then alternative 1A and Fremont, where we don't have a dedicated right turn. So you do have motorists turning through the bike lane. So we didn't have a solution for this in this project, but in our Fair Oaks ITS project that we have federal funding to make modifications to curb ramps. this is where we're gonna make a recommendation that we modify, this ball out so that there can be a right turn off of Mission to Barrows. And that's really the only modification that we're doing there, other than making other, ball outs more prominent. So we're trying to make this one safe, we're trying to make it more prominent with vertical element. Haven't figured out how to do that yet, but this is one of the locations we're following. And from a right turn, so that we can, emphasize, the bicycle separation.
Ted, you don't happen to have a cost estimate for the modification of that bulb out to accommodate a right turn lane, do you?
Well, we were just spent last night talking about that. I'm very late to you. There's a catch basin here.
Of course there.
Exactly, so, we're thinking the design of it alone is like, what they sell, like 15,000 or something like that. Yeah, and the construction is probably gonna be, if it can get approved by LA County Public Works, with the LA County catch basin. It's gonna be tens of thousands of dollars to not buy it.
Does it require moving signal poles and that kind of thing?
Well, we're already like replacing.
Right.
So that's the idea that since we're already doing that project, that we made these modifications, we can
Got it.
catch it, whether, we have a, irreconcilable conflict with the catch basin and how it's gonna work out,
So it's not realistic to consider that as part of this project.
Exactly, just again, to the point of, we want this to be a slurry restriping project, it gets this implemented way faster than trying to incorporate the pieces into the various capital projects. But as far as Fremont, Barrows, and then Mission and Arroyo and Pasadena Avenue go, we have our eye on how those projects would be incorporated, how we would make the incorporate this project on those. Because all those projects that are scheduled to be completed in 2027. Yeah.
So I'm still thinking back to the discussion that Councilman Ferguson raised about the placement of the bike lane versus parking, and I think where we kind of ended that discussion is that there's just space limitations in that configuration. So, and noticing here, you've got 6 feet, 5 feet. Is there a acceptable minimum for a bike path lane?
5 feet is typically the minimum. We prefer to have buffering. 4 feet is considered substandard. So yeah, 6 feet is nice, and then, you can improve that by providing 6 feet and then buffering beyond that.
So are you thinking 6 feet where you can get 6 feet and then if not, then 5 feet?
Yeah, exactly, so they can more.
Can I ask, you mentioned that those other projects, including the Mission Pasadena, would happen in 2027.
They have to happen by 2027, that's what our fund is, so they're going to construction. Six up there, for the Barrows project, the complication is with a new pole installation, long lead time for all steel equipment, especially with, material demand where they are, so that's the idea that back 2027.
I was gonna ask the Mission Road Diet project, you're saying that would tie in, but is this ahead of that? What would be, or?
In theory, it could be, that kind of jumped to our funding slide, so. We have to talk about what this costs, and those are the projects that are funded, this project is not. So it really is a matter of prioritization. We're seeking funding, we actively have applied for funding, we haven't secured yet, so as far as the capital project goes, it's unfunded. Thanks for that question. So just to wrap it up, and to your point, we've got our 7-foot bike lanes on the other side of the street, because there's a lot more space. So this center line be pushed slightly south, because if you go out there right now, this lane's about over 20 feet wide, I think. So we take advantage of that, retain the left turn lane, keep the through lane, and then we've got our 7-foot bike lanes all the way down to right where the bike lanes from San Marino connect. That'd be the project right there. Now, that'd be the end of this concept, but in our plan to slur the entire main Mission Street from San Marino to Pasadena Avenue, we could consider additional improvements when we got to the plan, stage of what we could do outside of the scope of this, but as far as also, terrace and scope, that's the end of it. Okay. So plenty of time for questions, but maybe I'll jump to the costs quickly, we could talk about that. And then, we also, I just wanted to show you parklet designs, nothing new there, for those of you familiar with them, and I want to show them to the, commission, just so you're familiar with kind of.
But there's no action item for those, right?
No, I haven't,
Okay.
just sort of familiarity with what's happening. So I think we have in the staff report. But we basically asked, also to give us the cost for to implement this. And what they would do is, they would be, doing writing out the old markings, doing new markings throughout the entire project course. And then in some cases, they had to move, traffic signal loops because the lanes had shifted. So we wouldn't be doing new traffic signals in this project, and all of our new traffic signal projects, don't use loops anymore, they use cameras, but since we're not modifying the signal on this route, this project would be moving loops. They give us a $270,000 estimate for the work. It does not include story, which would be part of this. We think it's important to do that before we do the project, otherwise we'll wind up with a lot of those lines and won't be able to facilitate some of the minor cracking and other improvements to pavement along Mission Street. So, the slurry work, since we're looking at the entirety of Mission Street from east to west, we're estimating about $350,000 for that. This project would be about $270,000. The planning, the developing the plans and estimates, including all that business outreach to make sure that we're on the same page with all business owners and property owners, about $250,000. And then we'll get to it, but the improvements the city wants to make for the parklet areas, which is split between the city and the business owners, would be a little over $100,000. So in entirety, we're talking about $1 million to really implement this the way it should be for, a near-term project, which improves the condition of payment along Mission and adds the striping and finishes the parkings the way they were intended to be, set up.
Commissioner Dunlap.
Thanks for that breakdown of the budget. And this is more of a general comment, because I was looking at the green paint conflict zones, and I know that some jurisdictions will just paint the actual conflict zone and not the entire bike lane, and I'm also thinking about the long-term, your maintenance costs to maintain that and keep it green, as well as, I want the community to support this, and sometimes the community can be upset about the changes in aesthetics that they feel are a little bit too far, not in the character of South Pasadena. And I also see that green paint markings is probably almost 20% of that $1 million budget, or 17.5% of the $1 million budget. Like, thoughts on that, like, and feel free, commissioners, to weigh in on.
Yeah, maybe open to it, but since that extra is a bit, high visibility decision. But if, let's say we do this outreach and we get a significant amount of pushback on that particular element, people are buying the parking reduction, buying the lane reduction, buying the bike lanes, but don't like them being green, then yeah, that's when it's that point that I consider that change.
Yeah, I would advise that we keep that in, especially because there's no protection for the bike lane, so the green paint really is the only thing that alerts drivers that it's there. So I mean, yeah, it is a high cost, but I mean, the trade-off is safety
Sure.
and people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we have it, that's why we put that on our thought too, but of course, we need to hear all viewpoints to make that type of decision.
So, Ted, is there anything more you want to share with us?
Can you go to the parklet slides, go back to the slideshow? So you're probably all familiar with what we have out there for carpets. If you've been to Jones Pond, you see we have some new green K-rails. And if you've been inside, you've seen we've got some, nice looking flooring. That's the base, setup for the carpet. The intention there is that some of that flooring is, the old flooring was kind of coming apart. The old rented 20-foot K rails take up a different footprint than we intended with our 5-foot K rails, especially since we had, purchased single pieces to implement there. And also the makeshift, planters and screening that some of the businesses have implemented wasn't part of our, aesthetic. So we've already changed out the one near Jones, and we're working on changing out the one on South Street. But what I want to show you is what it's intended to look like, and the reason is because it's part of our budget. You could jump down one slide, actually, we'll do one that's like a isometric, maybe one more. Yeah, can you do that one and zoom in a little bit, the top one? So the real intention for this carpet was that, oh, okay, yeah.
Just kidding.
So, up to the business, whether they wanna add, shading, Jones showed that wasn't really their style, but other businesses may choose to add to our awning. And we had to go through a community development permitting process to attach that to the facade of the building. But what I want to point out is that it was always our intention to, add trim to these carpets that make it look a lot nicer, and you can either have a flat cap where people could even like set their coffee down on it, or you can have these planters, which provide a little bit more of a, separation. And then even for the outdoor businesses, their concern was, if I'm having dinner, I want a little bit of privacy. We even talked about that. They've given us, planting suggestions that actually, provide another screening element. We don't want to provide like a cave type of environment where it's hidden and, it's sort of obscured from the view. That's our perspective. But this is always the intention. It'd be up to the cities to provide the, furniture, but our recommendation is that the cities that own the K-rails, the flooring, and the trim can maintain it. And that's where that extra 100,000 comes from, is that all this has to be custom fabricated. And in some cases, we've already bought these planters, we have them, but we have trees to add. And if you could jump one more slide, in some of the planter locations, maybe one more. Trying to get to this line right here. Yeah, we have this sort of, some fit planters that fill in the space that you can't put a carpet for. So right now, you have a carpet floor that kind of ends, and then this area that someone can step into. So that funding would also pay to fill in some. So this is what it's intended to look like, and we get a lot of comments about it now, but this is the original idea.
And that's the intent on all the build out.
Exactly, yeah.
That we'll do that ourselves. I mean, the city will.
It would, yes, but that's in our budget, or unfunded budget.
I heard you mention, maybe I misunderstood. Are they sharing the cost on this?
So they, the idea is that they already have, outdoor dining permits,
Correct.
outdoor dining permits. So, the city is going through a user fee evaluation to see what those permits should cost. Right now, they're relatively expensive. So if you go along Fair Oaks or Mission Street,
Right.
people are using the outdoor dining, and they're basically paying, a small fee to use it. So they would share the cost in that way, but in addition, the idea is they would maintain the planters. And purchase and supply the furniture in line with a standard, aesthetic, theme that the city has. And then the city, would maintain the flooring, the K-rails, and the trim. And so that's how we should share.
And if they choose not to?
And if they choose not to have a hardwood, yeah, and that's really the decision about, we work with each one of these, if they don't want it there, then we can move it somewhere else. The beauty of this design is that it's somewhat modular, and that if you just don't have a carpet there, then you just have parallel parking. So we can move the carpets in different locations. As far as we're concerned, the ones that are out there already, those businesses are looking to maintain and improve them for sure. So that's the last thing. Happy to walk through anything and take questions.
Okay, so maybe we'll just go around with questions and then there might be public comment. Not sure. And then we can go to our comments and discussion if that's okay. So is that all? Okay. Commissioner Brunel, do you have any other questions for Ted before we move on?
I do have questions. I don't know
Okay.
if we want to do like
Yeah, public comment.
public comment.
Before questions?
Do we, is that the process or?
Yeah, usually there's a public comment first before.
Or do? we
I
do
thought it
our-
was
Give that to
questions
the
of the
chair.
Oh,
And I think in the
So
past, we've done
I
that.
would prefer questions of staff. And then we can do public comment and then we can have our conversation, discussion, comments. Is that okay? So just keep it questions you have that you need answers to.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yes. Can you remind me the speed, the posted speed on Mission now?
Do you remember that? Is it? The 30? Yeah, I think it's 30.
And you're gonna maintain that as part of the project or?
That's actually the next presentation. yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
But I do question, I don't think, we didn't consider that in this evaluation, we left it towards the sort of citywide.
That's right. Okay. Okay. And then I'm also curious, like, there are opportunities to like restripe some of the existing crosswalks. And like paint to high visibility. I don't think, like, that's not part of your current scope to restripe or update the stripe.
It wasn't part of this conceptual design thing, but that's, you know, during a PSNE, we would determine the limits of the project, and most likely we would extend the limits up each of the side streets.
Yeah.
Maybe about 50 feet, so we could slurry those side streets and then we stripe the crosswalks.
Yeah,
And then we eventually, slurry the resident street that we don't need about.
okay. And I think also just generally, it would be helpful to look at just like increasing visibility for people crossing at the major intersections. If there's, I know that there are existing like bulb outs, but if there's opportunity to do like daylighting improvements or things like that.
Absolutely, so in all of the projects we're putting together now, we're going through and doing a daylight work.
Okay,
Where feasible, adding a red curve to make it very obvious we have to do that. What I should have mentioned is that we modeled this based on the fact that we would have RMPs already installed at Michigan, Fairview and Diamond. So literally put another factor into the model that those would randomly be pressed every once in a while, by someone crossing the street, and then you'll see that in the data. On that note, we have been, paused on that project for some time because we had lost our federal funding. We were able to regain the federal funding with a new finance letter just last month. So we're going to move forward with our finalizing the design package later this year and then move to our implementation. Like many of these traffic signal, pedestrian, device projects, the equipment's on a long lead time. So it might be some time until we see those actually installed, but that's our plan, is to move forward with those priorities.
okay, that sounds good. And then can you just talk like super quickly about community engagement and like when and what's the plan and like, will we have any input on that?
Sure, so with the original scope of Alta, I mean that pretty robust.
Okay,
We had envisioned literally setting up, not just at the farmers market and some of our other opportunities to reach out to people, but literally setting up on the street near some of these businesses, sort of engaging with people who were there. And literally having a meeting with the businesses in that area to see how this was gonna work. There's still scope for that, but given how much work we did on the residential Slow Street project and then sort of rework on this project to get it where it needed to be, where we don't have funding anymore in that project to do that. But the simple explanation is now we program that into the $1 million project so that we can continue with that same scope, but just under the next environments.
okay.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Trevino, any questions?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to be excused. I have another commitment. And this will be my last meeting. I have a board meeting on the same days on Wednesdays. I have the Regional Oversight Committee for the county, 1 o'clock to 3:30, 3:45. And I jump over to my board meeting at 4:30. I cannot make this Wednesday meetings. So, well, today's Tuesday, yeah,
No. I hear you, and,
with all due respect, I think, excuse.
okay, I totally understand, and thank you for your service, and thank you for coming, and yes, you're excused.
Sir?
All right.
And
Thank you.
that goes back to, Commissioner Carino's been a huge help to us in many different times, so, I'm sorry about the scheduling on with the new mission, we recall it, but we're really.
We will keep the water flowing fast.
Working on bigger things. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hernandez, any questions?
I think
Questions?
they've all been answered. I think,
Okay.
you had a wonderful line of questioning, and in between all of that, there was a question I hadn't right on.
Covered. All right, wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, I'll skip myself for now. Next,
Yeah, I had the crosswalk question, which you just answered on those streets. And then I know we skipped over it, so I'm almost hesitant to bring it up, but I will anyways, just to connect. It's sort of a new commissioner question, just to connect the Meridian discussion to this discussion. I think if I thought I heard you correctly, the Meridian discussion of the Meridian closure is a separate project has separate aspects unrelated to this project, but that project is still moving forward on its own path. I'm just trying to
Great
connect.
question. I'm glad to hear, thanks, I kind of verbally. This project, when it was originally conceived to be a temporary project, meaning that we would temporarily implement a road diet on Mission Street, then we would take it out. Included the closure of Meridian Avenue. This is basically an experiment. What would the road diet on Mission Street look like? What would the Meridian closure look like?
Got
And so that, under that auspice and how we did that itinerary study, it basically said, you do this closure, you have an increase of traffic on Fremont, it's not that significant, the closure is feasible. But as we started to talk about, okay, what are we trying to accomplish with this project? What's it gonna cost the city, not just in terms of dollars, but perception, to implement this whole thing? Just to take it back out and put it back, we're really just thinking it's the best approach. We talked to council about that, and I think we got large agreement that if we're gonna move towards changing Mission Street, it should be a move towards doing something more permanent. And so understanding that very large scale, complete reconfiguration of Mission Street was gonna cost a lot of time and money. We pivoted our approach to, let's do this approach where we do the road diet, and it's basically a striping project. That kind of meant, well, we're not gonna close the Meridian, because we really can't close Meridian with a striping project. It's gonna be reconfiguring sidewalks, and barriers, changing the traffic pattern. So we don't have a project on the books to close Meridian. We just know that it's feasible, and that if there is a future project that can improve the downtown area, perhaps part of, a development impact to do that work, to create park infrastructure, which is something we can do. And so that would be something that we do in the future, but that isn't budgeted or conceived, just not part of the scope of this time.
Okay, thank you. My last question is, with what's expected at the school district site, it's been a while since it would potentially have as much, I'll just say, flow as it's had in the past, and it's been years since it would have what it's potentially going to have. So is that future potential incorporated into the analysis done here about pedestrian flow, traffic flow?
Sure, so we actually were involved in that traffic impact analysis of the 1020 West Century project. It didn't require a whole lot of mitigating measures in terms of the impacts. It doesn't have driveway from Mission Street, it has driveway on Fairview.
Yeah.
And what we did was basically analyze the level of service impact, similar to what we did here around the entire area. It's not a small project, we consider like medium compared to other large mixed-use projects. But with the types of trips based on the commercial use, and then understanding that the demographic of residents would be more likely to use some of the, like, the transit center that's right next door. The finding was that that wasn't gonna be a huge impact to the traffic pattern. So with that understood, we moved forward with what the project looks like. If the results of that impact analysis had shown, yeah, there's gonna be extensive mitigation measures on Mission, then we probably look at it differently. That's really not the concept of the project. I know it came up with an earlier question, and so if they were to reevaluate, that impact analysis because that project alters, then yes, we might have to change what we're thinking here. Or move forward with a project and that developer would be responsible for making change in Mission Street later on.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharma. Commissioner Dunlap, any other questions for Ted? at
Sure.
this point?
Philip, can you put up the conceptual plan in front of T Morrow, RO? That area? The block. No, between Meridian and,
Yeah, it's favorite.
yeah,
Want to zoom in here?
yeah.
Can you go to the upper left corner? Yeah.
Ted, you mentioned that currently the lighter green or the light green, what am I talking about? The lighter blue are the two current parklets, and then the darker blue are two parking spaces. Is there anything that you can share as to, you know, why we're maintaining, what's the thought behind maintaining those two parking spaces? Is it for customers? Is it a delivery concern? You know, it seems like even if you wanted to park there, the odds of you circling the block and then there being an open space there would be pretty low, that if I wanted to visit that business, I probably wouldn't try to park there. Anything that you can share that
Absolutely.
provide that a little more color?
That was discussion. So the reason we put it was to re-envision a new park being there, that's sort of part of what we expect to happen. But I'll tell you, like, right now we have, we have kind of an offer to replace the 20-foot hay rail here, and the flooring needs some work here. So we're working with the business owner. We're working with the property owner right now to replace this whole thing. And there's actually 10 businesses in this area. And so in speaking to them about how the new park is gonna be configured, so we can replicate what we've done in Jones, it was their intention that, some of the businesses here that aren't outdoor dining businesses prefer to have that parking there. And to your point, they're always full, there's always 2 cars there, so I don't know how often they're available. What we're really just trying to accomplish is like, how do we make this project successful? And if the business owner's buy-in is more significant, if we allow them to keep the 2 parking spots, then that's sort of an easy compromise. So I'm not saying that's what is gonna happen, but it's looking like that in the current conversation.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I mean, I would say that the public good of increasing that space for everyone would outweigh
It
the,
could,
2
yeah.
parking spots, but
And that's why,
questions.
Yeah.
Second question, and I recall, from my prior term in the commission, going way back, and when this was repurpose Arroyo Fest funds. And the Arroyo Fest funds were gonna fund this demonstration project, the Slow Streets program, which was implemented. Then we even had a retractable bollards project in there that died or got shelved.
Sure, yeah.
And I remember we weren't able to meet that funding deadline for that grant, and so funding. Oh, well,
Yeah.
but wasn't some general funds set aside to support this work here? Like, can you help me understand that history or that?
Absolutely,
that-
yes.
Okay.
That's gonna be way too well, and then, the state work. So, yeah, we were awarded, $420,000 in medical funds.
Right.
That specific kind of usage, and then we had about $100,000 match to that. So we did use general funds to match that, and the total amount was like 500,000.
Mhm.
And that basically covered the largest part of that funding was used to buy all of this flooring to support Jones.
Right.
These 2 and shootings, and that's the storage. We also bought planters. We used it for the Alta contract for the residential flow streets, the
Mhm.
equipment for the residential flow streets. the design fee, there's a couple of miscellaneous stuff. When that project was, done in 2021, we used all the funding. We went back to council, to have also under a new contract to do all this work. And that was about, half general fund, half Measure M or Measure R local return funding to the tune of about 130,000 for all this work we've done in the last 3 years. And so that's basically been in the budget so far. What we've been looking for next is how we fund the rest of this project. You know, there's a mix of Measure M, like our money, we use general fund money, SB1 money, it just kind of like falls to our larger street improvement program and how we move money around and which project are higher priority.
But that, would you say 2021, that 2021 council set aside was mostly to fund this work, it wasn't for construction? Or implementation of this?
No, it was just, there was 2 pockets, there was that initial grant match that was spent on the initial effort, and then there was about 130 set aside. I want to say 130, 150, just to get us to this point of preliminary design.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunlap. Commissioner Kerwin, any questions?
Sure, just one quick question. You mentioned the other projects for 2027. How are those designs already complete, or where do those stand? I'm thinking of the tie-in with this project.
Sure, so the Barrows project, the design is about 40%, maybe 35, 40% complete. We actually have it on your work plan to look at that a little later this year. We're aggressively trying to finish that design by this fall. We have we're working with our consultant and we've altered the project since it was first conceived. We'll be talking to council about this hopefully in a couple weeks, but for example, the original Barrows project had deployment of changeable message signs on Barrows. So, you know, when you're going on the highway, it tells you it's gonna take an hour to get to Santa Monica, that's the kind of sign that was gonna be deployed. We didn't think that was the best use of the funds, so we changed that. We made a couple sort of scope changes. We're at the point now where we have to go back to council and sort of reorganize the project funding. With all that said, and I mentioned that because you'll see it come to council in a few weeks, and we're not bypassing the commission, we're just trying to deal with a contractual issue. The idea is to get that design done this year so that it can be in construction next year for the traffic signal pole and be complete by 2027. The Fremont Council project is a little bit farther behind that. We've done this planning effort, this preliminary design effort. We discussed with the commission the tool design work. We've taken that and all the other work associated with it, and we're releasing an RFP for a designer very soon, probably in the next few weeks. And then that will be designed through the rest of 2025, and that'll be done early 2026. And then that should be going to construction in 2026, and then be completed by 2027. The Arroyo Pasadena project, it's unclear if we're gonna be building that in 26 or 27. It's has to do a lot with how we balance the available funding between some of the residential reconstruction projects. We have a big $8 million project that we awarded at council soon. We talked about this commission. It's really about how much money we have when that can fall in, because that's funded with a special measure money, but it's gonna need some general fund. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I was actually most interested in that last one, and I was curious the design, how that ties in. I see an issue with the tie-in at Orange Grove, and I guess I'll get to that in my comments, but.
Well, there's the tie-ins have small impacts, I guess they're like local. So we're trying to make the projects coordinate, but if we have to implement, say, this project before we implement the Barrows project, we can design the street as is, as you see here, and then add under the Barrows project, we'll make the adjustment. It just depends on which project is first, which project has the responsibility to finish that intersection.
I guess, so specifically, my question was, where does the design for the Pasadena mission project stand? The design on that section is not started?
No, it has, Probably about 25% of that, yeah. Um. With the budget schedule, our understanding is that, we're gonna be talking to business commission about CIP next month. We're sort of trying to see when the CIP is going to council. It's still on schedule to go to council on June 4th and then return late June. So that was, scheduled for you for next month. So you'll get a little bit more, detail about these projects and how they're scheduled.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Ted. Thank you, Commissioner Kerwin. We good on your questions for now? Okay, great. I have a couple questions. I'll combine them with my comments. Let's go to public comment.
Just a reminder, public comment is 3 minutes each.
Okay, first we have, Casey Law.
Can I use this or no?
Yeah.
I'm not representing the city here. Myself. Hi, I'm Casey Law. I am representing South Pass Active, which is a community organization that's interested in improving sustainability, health of our streets, and active transportation in general. And I actually emailed the public comment. I think I missed it. But if it comes through late, then you can pass it along. I'll try to highlight some of the points here, but I really appreciate all of the work the city has done in this regard. It's a great project, and South Pass Active would love to see it happen. And the questions that have come up have been really well informed about making it work well. It's awesome. I'll just highlight things that didn't come up that I noticed. One is that there are about 10 to 12 general plan items, which are explicitly goals of the city that are connected to the Slow Streets project, I think in some form. So things like goal 3, emphasize pedestrians over cars in portions of the city. Goal 6, encourage the provision and use of alternative modes of transit. So things like this are actually very deeply embedded in the planning of our city's actions. So I hope that this project can move forward to help us actually implement something that helps us all act on those. Another thing I'll highlight is that the level of service standard that came up is fairly, I'm not an engineer, but I think it's considered outdated by some standards. So there's also the vehicle miles traveled, and the reduction of VMT is considered a goal in the state of California for many communities. So if you see level of service increase, often you're also actually seeing DMT go down, which is an explicit goal of combating climate change. So also highlight that the city of Lancaster, California, had an amazing revitalization where they took it's a 6-lane Lancaster Ave right there, sort of major thoroughfare, but a major, much more significant road diet than what you see planned here. Into 1 lane direction with a median and all sorts of beautiful measures, huge level of service impact, and it's considered a model for how slow streets can work, and it's really revitalized their downtown. That's really what business owners, I think, around town want to see. I'll note also that there are 3 or 4 new businesses on Mission, all of which cater to children or activities. So the new gymnastics studio, there's this active splash, kind of painting store, and the Hive. All these things are really great for kids, and so we want to have them feel safe and comfortable when they're walking across the street. If you've ever crossed 4 lanes of Mission unsignaled intersection, I think you'll agree it's not that comfortable for families. I think that's what I'm going to say here. So thank you for your, actually, so one more thing. The NOCTO standards have not been mentioned. So that's a different standard by which we make state streets. That standard for bikeways in particular recommends 25 miles per hour for a buffered bike lane if you'd like to have people actually use the lane. So just putting the paint on the ground is often not enough. You need protection, or you can reduce the speed limits. One of those 2 things are options that I think you should really consider if you want to make people feel comfortable using this thing after you spend all this money to build it. So please, you can consider these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Next up.
Next we have, it's Angela Kerwin.
Name sounds familiar.
Sure. Sorry, I was picking a kid up from volleyball, and I don't look appropriate. Thank you so much for tackling this amazing project for the community. We moved here about 6 years ago because we love this idyllic neighborhood for our children. They were just 3 and just 7 when we moved here, and so we ride our bikes and we walk, and every day I feel so blessed that we live here. And I just feel like this is an amazing opportunity to really enhance the sort of diverse way people get around. I know cars are important, of course, for a number of people, but I wasn't a biker before I moved here. And I'm not really like an actual cyclist, but I definitely ride a bike a lot. I prefer it over any other mode of transportation, and so do my kids. So we've been super active in trying to increase the amount of designated bike lanes for our community, because I would love nothing more than my kids to be able to ride their bike safely to school or to a friend's house. So thank you for tackling this. Something I had a little bit of a concern about is that in front of Orange Grove, it looks like that's sort of the beginning of the funneling of the road diet, and my rudimentary research and sort of common sense tells me that that might be a tricky part that increases accidents, because people are just becoming familiar with that, particularly if they're from out of town. So I'm wondering if there's been any thought to, you know, further down the road, particularly away from such a humongous park that a lot of kids are using all the time, to maybe like do that not right in front of the park and sort of, you know, get it going by the time it gets there, just to avoid accidents and everything. Because again, walking across Mission Street, whether it's from, you know, the dry cleaners or the Arco, it is really treacherous with kids. So I would highly recommend or encourage you to consider maybe starting the road diet a couple blocks down, so that by the time it gets to Orange Grove Park, it's kind of in full effect. But thanks for your work.
Thank you. I have one question. When you say further down, further west? Is that what you mean?
Like down that way,
Okay,
yeah.
just making sure I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks so much. Next up,
Next we have Sadie Jefferson.
welcome back.
Thank you. This is a real going on here. So I'm Sadie Damon. I have 3 young kids. My husband and I have been here for 2 years, and we are very excited about our history. It is our WhatsApp group has been very hot tonight about Mission Street project. This is the kind of investment families like mine want to see. It's why we moved here. Safer sidewalks, better crossings, the street that's more walking, biking, and just being outside. I walk Mission almost every day to the Jones, pick up things, and head to the library, and I want you to be able to do it too safely. Before moving here to Chicago on South Fulton Corridor, which you're into is exactly the same design. The bike lanes, 1 lane each way, and very vibrant businesses. Very kid friendly, very pedestrian friendly, outdoor seating, so people can, you know, actually, get outside. And it made a huge difference in young families in the area. In that South Corridor in Chicago, right, I really feel. And I think we're already seeing signs like Angela Casey said here about businesses on Mission, kid friendly businesses, that we signed up for, and I think this in the community so much more vibrant. So I support this, my neighbors support this, and thank you guys so much for all the work you're doing to do this. And Ted, thank you for all the leadership in this space and for answering my email and saying that passion today as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jefferson. Any further public comment?
There are no more at this time.
Okay, any on Zoom, just to confirm? No? Any comment on Zoom or?
No.
No, okay. And I'll just note that there were a number of written comments that were submitted before.
The prior is also considered a conditional attachment.
Great, thank you very much. And there were some very thoughtful ones, so I appreciated them. Okay, so with that, I will close public comment. We can return to comments and questions. Where'd Ted go? Did he leave the building? Okay. You're not off the, so Ted, I had a couple of questions that then rounded out and then some comments, and then we'll go once around again, or maybe more. Commissioner Brunel asked about the outreach. Somebody here asked about outreach. Is there a timeline for that? And the reason I asked is, I think there's general citywide support for this. I know the city council has asked that this move forward. So I'm just wondering, time-wise, what are we looking at? Because this has been in the works for a minute. So I'm just wondering, do we have sort of a sense of how much time we're gonna permit for community outreach, meeting with business owners, that kind of thing? And then as part of that, what happens? Are you gonna then come back with yet another version for us to review, or how does that input factor in?
Sure, great questions. So as far as the timeline for outreach, we do have an idea of how long that would take. It's in our scope with Alta. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's somewhere between 3 to 6 months of that work. Now with that said, because that project, this future project is not funded, that includes outreach, I don't know a timeline for when that would begin, because we wouldn't start that actual project until it was funded. So the funding that we had so far towards this was to get us through this design process, essentially. This initial preliminary design process, we can move into an actual design process. Now, once we have the conceptual plan down, and we've at least got the commission and council buy-in to move forward. Now, to the latter part of your question, coming back with another version, it's not necessarily our intention to alter the road diet design with the public outreach. It's really about what would happen at the localized locations of parklet and parking, if there's any room to make modifications there. But with the design that we move forward with, ultimately, we don't have a variable cross section that we're looking at. Like, we take the bike lane out or take, any of the lanes out at a certain location because a particular business wasn't fond of it. We'd be moving forward with the road diet as a whole concept. And, and a lot of that is garnering support for the project, because there's a lot of things that businesses might have a particular issue with that we might be able to resolve. Some other driveway conflict or signage issue or concern, and that's really what that would be for.
Okay. So minor adjustments, not a wholesale rework.
No, I mean, we worked this several times.
Well, that was my thinking too.
Yeah, we're pretty confident with this. We like the recommendation with your advisement on tweaks to set this up for moving to design.
Okay, great. Just a couple other questions that are location specific. In no particular order. Just southbound Orange Grove at Mission. You're transforming the middle lane from right or left to right only.
Right.
Right only. So it's 2 right lanes, 1 left. Southbound Orange Grove at Mission.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, sorry.
Makes sense. No, we're good. Suggestion for you on that. The first right turn lane, the one in the middle, the former either way lane. It would seem to function like lanes we have on State at Fair Oaks and on Greville at Fair Oaks. And this is just a suggestion as you get further into it, that some signage saying, if you're continuing southbound on Orange Grove, be in this lane, versus being in the right-hand lane adjacent to the curb and then crossing over. Am I making sense?
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be great if those people were in that.
And that was the design intention too,
Okay.
that,
And I'm sure there'll be cat tracks and.
yeah, we wanted to preserve that, southbound Orange Road movement, south of Mission.
Yeah.
So you're right.
It's a smoother flow. Okay,
And you
so,
can see that in the, striping configuration. We've taken away the northbound left turn from Mission to Orange. So that can become actually, so it's not about all directions.
that 1A, which one is that?
If you go to, page 1 of
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
So you can see how this was, formerly, you can pull up a little, yeah, this was formerly, a pocket itself. So like if you were gonna go, southbound Orange Grove, you'd go this way, you'd go around this pocket and get here and go down. We removed that.
Oh,
So that this is only for left turn, so they can receive this traffic
right.
and receive left turn traffic here. And that was intentional to remove this high,
Okay.
because we're pushing everything south, pockets here, so your comments.
My suggestion is just that there's signage that can,
Signage here.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you perfectly led to my second question, which is very similar to one Commissioner Dunlap asked about Mission at Mound, which is so that left turn pocket, it's interesting. So westbound Mission approaching the intersection.
Yes, the slide a little bit left only. And that's, I think if I know where you're going here, that's so that people who are here know they're only gonna take a left after the intersection. They can't take left here, honestly.
Is there that kind of a demand that it needs that much lead for the
Well,
left turn?
It's more so, it's not it's that, if we didn't do this, then, and this was a discussion we had at staff, people will be quickly trying to transition here, probably a little too late to go left.
Okay,
So we wanted them to have adequate, that it wasn't a movement that was like sudden. And, you know,
okay.
doing it in the intersection, we don't want to change anything in the intersection.
Just throwing this out there. It seems like I don't have the counts in front of me, but if it's not the majority, it's pretty close. Most of the folks approaching this intersection from the east, traveling west, many of them are turning right to go north on Orange Grove to get to the parkway, the freeway. So I was just sort of wondering, did it make sense to have a dedicated right turn pocket and a through lane and not this left turn lead?
We did look at that, but what that means is that if this is the left turn, if this is the through lane, then it's gonna be hard to accommodate left turn lane, because then we're gonna have to weed people back this way. So we considered that since the volume of northbound road is high, that, it'd be unlikely that you have some sort of queuing that would limit that. In other words, you know, people could move. People can, have forward movement pretty unrestrained, and they can also take right. And by, combining that, hopefully you have the impact of people taking this right, not so fast, you know, but not flying.
Right.
You know, there's a right turn pocket, they have a tendency to get in and fly around the curve versus.
Right.
This happening slowly.
Got it. So the net effect is you're gonna choke traffic there. That's what's gonna happen. And I'm not saying, I'm not against it. I just,
Possibly,
I'm
yeah.
spotting the issue.
Right, we saw a lease reduction in, so that would be a level of service indication.
Right.
We saw a lease reduction in level of service indication in this intersection. With that.
Okay. And I just, to Commissioner Brunel's point some time ago, I have a little anxiety about folks being impatient and wanting to turn right across that bike lane and sort of creating a turn pocket that doesn't exist de facto.
Sure.
But just something, again, things to keep in mind as we
Yeah,
go
and
forward.
it's probably to have mentioned per the public there, you know, the other, or one of them. We do fully intend to connect this whole thing, but the key there is that the mission past the intersection has to be reconfigured first. Talk about sequencing projects. Because right now, we don't have it up here, but if you can all recall, it's 4 lanes all the way down Michigan and then all the way down Pasadena. So unless you're gonna introduce the road diet on Pasadena Avenue, which we were intending, you're gonna have to have a transition somewhere else, which was the public comment. And we're seeing that transition as being when Pasadena Avenue turns to Michigan Street. So in other words, leading up, if you're leading up to Mission, if you're coming up Pasadena, it starts to change to 2 lanes. And then once you're at the intersection of Pasadena, Mission, the road diet begins there. It's a reconfigured intersection. And then from that point to here, it's all 2 lanes. So yeah, this does connect once that project. So what we're talking to the designers is like increasing the boundary of their work all the way to here. Because right now it's just a two intersection.
Okay, yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Next question, mission at Meridian. There's a westbound,
Right.
there's a westbound left turn pocket from Mission onto Meridian, I believe. We could go a little further.
Next page. Yeah. It's
All right, so I just want, again, pointing out. We have a farmer's market. So there is a period Thursday afternoon where you can't make that left turn.
right.
And my rudimentary understanding of traffic engineering is that you can't have a left turn pocket if there's a period of time where they can't make.
So you
left
got
turn.
all of this lane.
So they'll just close it up,
Exactly.
use that safe temporary.
Exactly.
Service lane.
You know, lane closed.
Got it.
And.
Okay.
Side.
Okay, great. And the current peak hour turn restrictions would be removed for those at that intersection? Right now, there are peak hour turn restrictions from Mission onto Meridian, which
Right.
one of the
Yeah,
prior,
Because you wouldn't have a left turn pocket with turn function for people to stop in left turn pocket.
so the plan is those would,
Would be removed because if you're in a pocket, the idea is you're not.
you want to get stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you for that. And then I'm going to pick up with Commissioner Dunlap's comment. Eastbound Mission, excuse me, add Mound. So where we have that
Yes, yeah.
inordinately long left turn lead, again, just, so yeah,
Yeah.
I can't see it, but I'm sure. So eastbound Mission, approaching Mound, there's a left turn, combined left turn and through, right?
Right.
So I don't take the turn onto Fair Oaks from Mission daily, but I've never seen the left turn line extend west past Mound to turn left onto Fair Oaks from eastbound Mission. So I'm wondering about the need to have a combined through and left turn lane, and maybe that should just be a dedicated left turn pocket to reduce confusion. People swerving around because somebody's waiting to turn left at Mound, but they want to keep going right towards Fair Oaks and do the little swerve move. So
We did talk about that, and the alternative to this is that this is a left turn lane, there's no through. And then this is basically yellow marked hatched median. And then the pocket starts later on. And that's where the Q pocket that came in the discussion with our modeler, was that they recommended that we make that as long as possible. So, yeah, the alternative is that this does not look like that. And then because we only have one through lane, this lane can't exist if there's no through. So we have to basically block this lane off and then make a decision as to when does it turn into a left turn pocket, just like this. It has to look like this, except that we don't want to widen the road too much because that would be the purpose of the calming effect. So that's the other alternative. We talked about it. It was just they recommended not to reduce that because if it does queue longer, then it queues into the through lane. And that's the issue.
right, so I would just say unless there's data to support that, which would shock me, I would highly recommend against that. And I would think whatever the minimum amount is of painted median you need to put, make it clear you can't continue, do that and then pick up the left turn lane.
I think we're revisiting with our consultant and say, okay, shut up, what happened, what makes it this long?
Right. I'm just thinking, simple usually works better. Unless there's a need. If there's a need, there's a need. Right. So just, that was a combined question and comment. Almost done. I think that might be it. So for us, and this is clarifying, for us tonight, I know you want our thinking on those alternatives for those couple of blocks between Fremont and Fair Oaks, right? 1A, one B? You want some direction on that?
Well, not necessarily, because this is. We were just trying to show you how we got here. I think the committee recommendation will be what we saw our place tonight, which was, looking at some of these modifications. There's a thought about, green lanes versus non-green lanes, a thought about, size of green lanes, about conflicts.
Right.
Talk about like this one and Orange Grove. You don't have to summarize that for us in a motion, but if these are your recommendations, and there's a consensus that we should move forward with those, that
Yeah.
general sense, then that's what we're looking for
Okay,
tonight.
all right. I just have one last comment. It was to something Councilmember Ferguson said early on. So some of these key intersections that we've discussed, the reason we took them very seriously is because our goal is to accomplish all of the greater goals of implementing a road diet without seriously impacting the adjacent streets. And by accommodating turns in a safe way, we could hopefully keep the traffic moving at some level so that people don't get so frustrated that they start using El Centro more than they already do. And I think, is it Magnolia is the first street north that goes east and west?
Yes.
That already gets hit pretty hard. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. But thank you, Ted. Okay, so I'll go ahead.
Just one question. On that shot there, the second little white point, keep your finger up there, move up a little bit more into your left. That one. What is
Yes.
that? Would you read that out loud and explain that to me?
All that is this white arrow. They're just
So
saying.
it's not a left turn arrow.
Yes, it is. It's saying that this lane is for people who want it, and that's all that means.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
because if you go down to here, fast forward to the Mission intersection, you can only make a left.
Oh, I see now. I see it now. I see it there. Okay. All right, thank you.
And of course,
Okay, so maybe what I'll do is just go around and I'll flip it. I'll start with Commissioner Kerwin for any final questions, comments, and then we can
Thank you.
move on.
I'll just say overall, I'm really excited about it. I think you did a great job. Kudos to you. It looks great. There's just one major oversight, I guess, from my point of view, and that is right at Orange Grove Park, where it still retains its full width. And I guess I did, Philip, I sent you a drug. I know you've looked at this already, but I'll just share my viewpoint there, if you don't mind. It's easier just to show, as you said, than and it's just I use this intersection fairly often, and I don't really see a lot of use with the way it is, where it already has this short little turn pocket, take left from here. So, but this design, by taking out one of those.
sorry, 1 second. We're just trying to make sure viewers see it. Yeah.
So I was just recommending, so shrinking down the Orange Grove coming south. Right now, this is like a double wide lane going north, and then there's 3 lanes across here. It seems like you only need the 2 there. There's never really a big issue with these turns. There's not that many vehicles that are turning, certainly not many in one. But allowing this 1 lane to go through, it seems like it ties in better with a 2-lane configuration coming from Mission over here. And that's why I kind of kept asking about the tie-in over here, because it seemed like you have full 5 lanes here and 5 lanes here. It doesn't shrink down in the Alta design until you get down to here at the far end. So the cross section, it goes to 2 lanes here and down there, but out here it's still about 5 lanes wide. So the goal here would be to shorten there's these 2 crosswalks serving, this park, to me, is one of the key assets of Mission Street. You have the business district, obviously, further down, but here is another key asset that the road diet, from a safety perspective, should serve.
So maybe, to the point of sequencing, maybe a phased approach, where we're able to bring in the other project that allows us to make this connection that we look at, doing some of this next.
I guess
Yeah.
the thing, the Alta design already restripes this intersection. So to me, if you're gonna spend the money on restriping this, it doesn't seem like it does, and what the current Alta design doesn't really modify this in any way of a road diet. So to me, this would be using those same efforts to restripe it in a way that actually performs the road diet, that then would also tie into a further continuation of the road diet. So I guess I'd just be curious to get, not now, but at some point, hear kind of what your concerns would be with this sort of configuration.
Are you thinking then out loud so that rather than making a left there at Orange Grove, I mean, at the park, you continue straight?
No, no. It's still, there's still a left or a right turn there, but instead of having two lanes that make a right turn, there's.
Oh, no, I'm thinking that, I was thinking going west on Mission in front of the park,
Okay.
going west, continue, going west, that way.
Yeah.
That left turn lane,
Yeah.
is it necessary or continue straight?
This would be a left turn pocket.
That's what it shows now.
Yeah, which there currently is a left turn pocket there already.
Yes,
Right.
you need it.
Right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pretty high volume at certain times of the
Really?
day.
That's most of the traffic that comes, that goes like this.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's very little traffic that continues on. Most of the traffic
We'll turn
goes
right.
this way, probably 20% continues through and turns out here.
Okay.
That's just something to offer as a consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kerwin. Commissioner Dunlap?
Sure. Hey, thanks, Ted, for bringing this back to us. I think, again, like this has gone through several iterations, and I think this is probably the third or fourth time that the commission has seen it. And, I think that the design proposed is certainly an improvement over what's out there today. It's probably not perfect, in the sense that, like, I don't think the bike facility is one that a child would feel safe riding in, but understanding that there are a lot of complexities with this street, and that we have vehicles very close to pedestrians, especially at Diamond at that intersection. You mentioned the parklets, you're very close to vehicles there. We have cyclists on the street. We also have the metro rail that comes in at very unpredictable intervals. We don't have turn pockets, and so you have people stopping in the number one lane, number two lane, and you kind of make this weaving pattern down the street. While I don't think that we might have 100 goals that we want to see. This is a slurry seal project, and I appreciate you even kind of taking the extra step to say, hey, it's going to be $1 million, and we want to do this the right way. We want to do it with a slurry seal and not just put temporary paint tape down or whatever. We want it to look nice. So, I think I'm generally supportive of this. I think it's an improvement over the day, despite not, maybe it can't do everything. I would like to see, some of the aspects that Commissioner Brunel mentioned, conflict zones once you get to the intersections, and anything that we can do to encourage vehicles from not encroaching in the bike lane too early. That's some sort of vertical element in advance. Maybe not all the way down, but just in certain sections so that they're not crossing over too early to get around queues or traffic. So, but thank you overall.
Thank you, Commissioner Dunlap. Commissioner Sharma?
Yeah, sure. I think just a couple of quick questions, or questions / comments. So I think just echoing what was just shared and what we've been sharing about the protected versus unprotected nature of the bike lanes. And so I think just in area, because I live on the western end, so I take the new Monterey and I see the new striping, and it's incredibly helpful. And I think the bright green is very helpful to see it, especially at night and, at a time. But it's, I think to the earlier comment by our vice chair, it's just green paint. And so I think here, which is much more highly trafficked than Monterey, I imagine there are some parts of the bike lane that don't have a parking spot next to it. So like the parklets, so then, to the extent there's any protections that could be put in those spots, because there'd be no scenario where a car would slide over. I think that's just something for consideration, just to add protection.
That's a good thought, yeah.
That'd be good. And then, I think just echoing the comment, that was raised in public comment about starting it right in front of Orange Grove Park. And so I know you shared that there's a larger project, this is part of a larger connection, and the change in the play with the other, as you continue down Mission and has switches to Pasadena, and it's all sort of connected, but it is also a very high traffic with kids getting dropped off, kids getting picked up, and having this start right there. So if it has to start kind of on the east side of Orange Grove, even if it could start maybe a little bit past Orange Grove Park, just so the new striping, the new road diet doesn't start the exact same spot where drop off and pickups take place. Just something to share. So, but thank you all for really spending the time and answering all our questions.
Absolutely, those are great comments from that, so thank you.
Welcome, thank you. Two last questions and then I'll do a me too. So parking, we're losing some parking. We don't have the numbers, but we're losing some parking. The plan is what? That the Meridian Mission Garage would absorb that needed capacity or provide that?
It's a great question. We didn't.
There you go.
Right, so you're introducing lots of modes of transportation, therefore you should have a little less reliance on vehicular parking for businesses to get people through the door essentially.
Okay, so there is no plan then, or?
For this project, there will be evaluation.
And I'm asking this question not from a personal interest, because I'm anticipating the concerns of certain business owners.
Sure, we've given thought to it, it's obviously a discussion, the future of Mission Meridian Garage. There's also, the mixed use development and whether or not those add additional parking. Some are even adding, bicycle parking is a minimum requirement there, so we're going above and beyond that. So that downtown parking evaluation is a concern, it's not within the scope of this evaluation. But yeah, it is just what does that do? And it goes to my point in saying is that this project isn't the only factor of the volume and availability of downtown.
Right.
So.
Okay. And we'd still use everything we purchased at the end of a couple of years ago, the planters and so forth, that's all still functions within the new design?
Exactly, yeah. All of that equipment gets consumed with just the existing parklets that we have.
Right.
And if we want to put those new dark blue areas, then we need additional equipment.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so I'll just quickly say, I love it. I think it's great. Let's find the money and get it done. It's been in the works for quite a while, and I know there's more work to do, but I think it's terrific, and I think it'll be a great revitalization of Mission Street and great for businesses and residents. So I would say, whatever we can do to move forward with whatever outreach we need to do and get that piece of it started would be terrific. But I'm 100% supportive, and I know we're going to have some impacts at certain intersections, but I think it's an easy trade-off. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess one thing, there was a slide that you had that talked about the cost of the paint, and then we had a commission question about that. I didn't, I just for the sake of helping me wrap my head around it, like the cost of like, let's say round speed bumps or something like that, to get contextualize the paint cost, if they're exponentially cheaper than like, let's say if we put some of those, round speed bumps out, which I think would be probably a good way to get vehicles to slow down if they're going to be crossing a bike lane. So have some idea of what that cost is just for comparison's sake, and at least know that we've evaluated or explored it. And then the second part is what the end of life of this looks like. I mean, this is ultimately a restriping project, and so I think like this is kind of this is very ambitious in the sense of how much we're anticipating the change of vehicular behavior on the street by the application of paint. You know, when this reaches its end of life, is this part of a larger vision that is permanent bike lanes, et cetera, or what that looks like as this starts to fade out, and it's the next phase of this, how that fits to our master transportation plan in like a permanent way. And so that's not something that has to be hashed out now. It's just something to consider when we're thinking about this as like a full life cycle existence within the city. So, especially as we start having development with the rezoning, and kind of like, then we would potentially have developer impact fees that could be applied towards more permanent things. So along these corridors. So, I just kind of want to mention those things. And again, thank the commission. If well, we get a chance, probably get a chance to thank you folks being late, but, this is very detailed. And it takes a lot of subject matter expertise and people having the desire to stay engaged with it. And so I appreciate, I mean, this is my first time going through it. And so if you folks have been through it for your third time, I appreciate the input. So.
Thank you, Councilmember Ferguson, very much. Commissioner Hernandez, any final comments, questions?
I'm fine with everything. Very pleased. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Commissioner Brunel.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing this plan. This was also my first time looking at this, so yeah, really appreciate the discussion. I will say that, you know, I understand the constraints on the roadway. I think like my preference as a cyclist and planner is to do parking protected bike lanes and have maximum safety for cyclists. I understand that's not, you know, possible in this design. But just echoing Commissioner Sharma and others, I think wherever we can look at that, I would just urge the city to do that. But yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone. Ted, are you content with what you heard from us? Do you need anything first?
Generally, I can summarize, that, we don't have any sort of attractive comments about not moving forward with this. There's definitely some room for improvement. We've got a video log of the comments and some of your ideas. So I think the next steps for us plainly are incorporating this into the 5-year strategy that we're already working on. Listing as an unfunded item, which allows the council to determine if they want to move funding towards it, prioritizing other needs in the city. We could certainly, with whatever we have left on the contract, vet a couple of the comments that we heard about reconfigurations, just so that the preliminary design submittal, the deliverable, is going to be passed along to whoever the next design consultant would be, if and when we're able to find a project. So that's our next action. That can us to a particular schedule of the getting into the queue of the many projects that we want to see done in the city. So thank you all so much.
Thanks very much, Ted. Thanks, everyone. It was a wonderful presentation. Really well done. All right, moving on. Item 4. The citywide engineering and traffic survey report. Welcome, Bassam.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners and council member. This is my first official presentation in front of your council, so allow me to introduce myself. I'm the Bassam Betawi, Transportation Program Manager for the city. Today, I will be going over the 2025 citywide engineering and traffic survey study that we recently have completed, and I want to share our findings with that. Engineering and traffic surveys are also known as speed limit studies, and usually we refer to them for short as EMTS. So what is the engineering and traffic survey study? California Vehicle Code Section 625 defines the EMTS as a survey of highway and traffic conditions in accordance with method determined by the Department of Transportation for use by the state and local authorities. A little bit complex, but literally evaluating existing roadway conditions. Three important elements that should be included in every engineering and traffic survey, no matter what you're developed by. And those are, you have to evaluate the prevailing speed as determined by the engineering measurements that we take, accident history on the segment of the street that you're studying, and existing roadway conditions, highway traffic, and that are not readily available or visible to regular motorists on the street. Those, again, so these are the main elements of the ENT, but there are more considerations obviously we take into. Can you tell me? So when qualifying an appropriate speed limit, local authorities, they consider all of these factors here, and that includes the roadway, design speeds, safe, safe stopping side distance, shoulder conditions, vertical and horizontal roadway alignments, that's what curvature of the road, intersection spacing and offsets, driveway characteristics, pedestrian and bicycles present on the road, roadside development and environment, parking practices, and the density of adjacent residential and or businesses. So you see in general, it's really very comprehensive study that looks into every possible thing that could affect motorist driving behavior, which really sets up the speed. Next, please. So currently there are set speeds that are called prima facie speed limits in the state of California. And this is just a quick list of the prima facie speeds here in California. 75 miles per hour, you've seen it on sections of the highways probably. 65 miles per hour is the regular highway speed. 55 miles per hour, that's on 2-lane undivided highway. We see those sometimes when you're on a mountain road, for example, when you see 1 lane of traffic not separated by physical separation. The 25 miles per hour, that's the most common probably prima facie speed limit, and that's we see that on residential streets and business districts, and of course, most importantly, school zones. 15 miles per hour are an alley, or when you are reaching an approach of rail crossing that is not controlled by. Those are set, we cannot do anything. Anything else that doesn't fall under these criteria, then we have to perform a speed and track service study to determine what's the appropriate speed for the. So why is our city really needed a new study? Because California Manual on Traffic Control Devices states that local agencies should conduct engineering traffic survey every 5 or 7 years. The 14 here with the asterisk, that used to be actually every 10 years. But just last year with AB 43, they extended that 10 years to 14 years that you can really maintain that same speed limit if there are no major significant changes to the roadway geometrics or fronting developments or anything that would impact speed and roadway conditions. And under certification of a registered engineer, he can extend the existing speed limit to 14 years. So in our case, again, the last engineering traffic survey was done in 2014, and we are now ready for a new study. It's important that we follow this opinion because police officers and law enforcement will not be able to enforce the speed limits if it expires. So it's really very important for police officers. So we initiated this new study back in February, and we hired really one of the probably most renowned names in track engineering, Fred Menninger Associate, and they're really very famous, and we trusted that they will do a comprehensive study that would really meet what we are looking for. Next. Thank you. So Well, the methodology we followed, like I said, again, we assessed all the previous issues that I explained earlier. In addition, we also added compliance with guidelines of the California Vehicle Code, state and federal and NETCDs, the California New Speed Law, AB 43, that's very important, and we're gonna hear a lot about it, I'm sure. But that's really something we have to incorporate in our study. Also, obviously, our data that we collected, average daily traffic. And for speed, we have to use radar gun. That's required for uh, engineering traffic surveys. It has to be done by radar or really it won't happen. Analyze prevailing condition, and we analyze the 3 years accident history. And again, other highway and roadway conditions that could affect with speed limit. So in this study, we looked at the 58 roadway segments on 29 city streets. 58 roadway segments, as you can see here in this map here. The color code corresponds to the existing speed limit on those roads. Literally, any street, again, like I said earlier, does not fall under any of the prima facie limit was evaluated. All these ones you see here with the gray, those are residential streets. They fall under prima facie 25 miles per hour, so we didn't need to evaluate it. Here we have the average daily traffic shown here on all the streets that we really evaluated. And again, as you see, if it's not residential street, sometimes it's a collector street or a secondary highway or what have you. The volume really increases dramatically. And again, that becomes really something that we have to take into consideration when we evaluate the speed is what's your volume. Again, as you can see here, major streets like Fair Oaks has a volume between 35 or 30 to 35,000 vehicles per day. That's per day. And okay, so based on the study, I mean, I think submitted with the agenda, there was a comprehensive report for the study, and it's really very detailed study. But here I'm trying really to make it easier to explain here. So based on all the criteria that we use to evaluate and determine what is the new speed limit should be on city streets, mainly 55 out of the 58 segments studied remained the same. Whatever was posted, we kept it the same. There's only 3 segments of the streets within the city that had actually didn't even have speed limits before, so we had to install new speed limits on them. And that is segment number 55 in the report, which is Olive Street between Orange Road to Meridian, and we're establishing a new 25 miles per hour speed limit there.
Osam, I'm sorry, can I ask you a question about this particular slide?
Sure.
What were the speed limits, as we sit here, what are the speed limits on these 3 segments? I know you're telling me there's nothing established or posted, I'm guessing, but what are they?
Those streets right now, they probably have a prima facie of 25 miles per hour.
Okay. So you're just
But-
solidifying what's.
Yeah, we're solidifying this, and our consultants saw probably a reason why he should actually supplement this prima facie with a study.
Okay.
I really don't understand very well the history behind it and what caused him to do that, but he felt that I need to do an engineering traffic survey to justify that 25 miles per hour on those 3 segments.
Okay, thank you.
And segment 57 is the Flores de Oro between Via del Rey to Camino Lindo. And the third segment is Camino Lindo between Flores de Oro to Alta Avenue. So this table, and it's probably
Excuse me, so on that last slide, the last two things, they were both segment 57.
Almost. Time.
Okay. All right.
Good catch.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. I can get it for you. Actually, the numbers here are the segments, so probably it's gonna show the exact.
Oh, okay.
The correct segment. So, this is the conclusion of, all the streets here listed with the new, speed limit, or, again, in most cases, are, what we propose is to keep the same speed limit that existed, that was there before. So, again, this is in the report that you have, it lists all 57 intersections. And, if you want to see this, this is the recommended speed limit, which is, literally what was based on, the previous one. They're all really corresponding to the previous ones.
I'm sorry, why are you showing this one that doesn't have all the streets?
Which one? No, it's, there's more.
What about Fair Oaks?
Sorry?
What about Fair Oaks?
No, there's more.
Oh,
Yeah,
there's more, okay.
Yeah, all 58 segments, sorry. If you keep going down, but this is the,
Okay.
to show all the segments.
Do we have that?
No.
Go-
I don't have that right now.
I don't
I
think it
don't
was
think that was part of
included.
our packet, paper.
Oh, this one now?
No,
It's in the
I
report.
think
it's in the full.
It's in
It's in the report.
packet.
I
You
think-
need to go like, yeah, the 1,000-page.
Yeah.
Yeah, the report is.
Yeah.
Oh,
I,
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
it's, the 220 page
Yeah.
report.
I had it.
It's-
Yeah, it's 1,000.
Okay,
Okay,
it's in the by the pound report.
Yeah.
exactly.
So with that in mind, I mean, I just want to go quickly on really how we, I don't know if you're familiar with AB 43, there were a couple of complaints that we received from public, for us not utilizing, AB 43 in the study. But actually, I want to use this as an example here. And to prove that we actually did incorporate AB 43 in our study. If we take, for example, here, Hilton. The prevailing speed, or the 85th percentile was found to be 31 miles per hour. The old rule tells us if it's like 31, 32, you lower it down to 30. If it's 33, 34, you bring it up to 35. However, applying the AB 43 rule, lowering by 5 miles per hour, we brought it down to 25. So we did actually, in case this rise up, that we did actually incorporate that. And that is also on other locations, but I just use this as a quick example. Okay, so with that in mind, again, if you really have any questions in the report and you read it, and if you agree with our recommendation, we would ask you to recommend it to city council for adoption, and you know, that can, because it has to be adopted obviously before the police can enforce the new speed.
Is there a deadline by which this has to be approved, or just as soon as possible?
Actually, the report, I believe it shows October 2014, but the sooner we can have that, the better.
Got it.
So we're taking that 10 years from the previous, yeah.
So we're past
2014
the
was
10
the-
do.
We're overdue.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
so, yeah, it's.
Okay. Thank you, Bassam.
14 years.
Why don't we hit public comment first before we do our questions and comments?
Yeah, we have Casey Law.
Okay, thank you for the chance to comment. So again, I emailed the comment that I set up, so I'm trying to recap that, but, I appreciate that this, survey is being undertaken. And I learned a bit tonight about AB 43. I'm glad to hear that it has been considered. But what I would like the commission to consider is that 20 is plenty. This is an international movement, actually. It started in the UK, but it's also taking off in the United States. And AB 43 really makes it possible for us to take action on this here. Long Beach, San Francisco, California have already implemented 20-mile-per-hour speed zones, or in general, you could say 5 miles, taking advantage of that AB 43 to mark down another 5 below what might be standard in the traditional 85th percentile assessment. It's well known that the risk of injury and death goes up very rapidly for people outside of cars when they're involved in a collision. And by reducing speeds, you can really save lives and injury in the city. And I wanted to highlight one particular thing I found interesting, which was looking at the state database for collisions and injuries. Well, it's really collision map, so the heat map for the city, and how that looks when you compare it to the recommended speed limit map. And this was in my, so it's a little bit hard to do this way, but I invite you to draw your own conclusions from the color coding of the speed limits and the color coding of the heat map of collisions. Interestingly enough, they have the same color coding. Danger is red, speed is red, right? So if you consider 5 miles per hour lower, if you could take an action tonight to drop that further 5 miles per hour unilaterally, that was even allowed now, you would make all the dark red into orange and all the orange into green. Like that's an action that I think I would hope it would be allowed, but at least it should be something to consider in a targeted way, I would hope, and have consideration of safety. So this is, I hope, not just an opportunity to meet, check a box and say that we need to do a survey because it's been 10 years, but it's a chance to actually improve safety for all South Pasadenans and people that come to visit here. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Law. Next.
That is all right now, and there are none on Zoom at this time.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Philip. I guess we'll go ahead and close public comments. And we'll start our questions / comments. We'd like to start. I'll just go around the clock, around the table. Then Commissioner Brunel, any questions or comments for the sun?
Okay, can we just go back to the table really quick? I just want to make sure I'm understanding it. So there's no other recommendations to lower speed limits than those 3 streets?
Yes.
Okay. And so I found what the map that this gentleman brought up very enlightening. Was that considered, was like the Switter's data considered, the hotspot analysis?
Okay, unfortunately, this map cannot be considered for the new traffic survey. What we consider is the Switter's report. That does, but not the heat map, because the heat map is not really related to the Switter's report. That's for
I would, can I push back on that? And I would actually bring this up as a performance issue with Minigar and Associates. If I look at the data that they use the UC Berkeley Transportation Injury Mapping System, which does not include all collisions. UC Berkeley only uses injury collisions. So it's not an apples to apples comparison to compare what's in TENS compared with the collision rate, since that's going to be all collisions. And then secondly, if you look at UC Berkeley's website for the TENS data, this is note to Caltrans, so not us, but Caltrans. It says, in making any decision, especially any engineering decision, Caltrans employees and those acting on Caltrans' behalf shall not rely upon this website, the data and information accessed through this website, or any document created using this website. The website data, information, and documents may be inaccurate, false, out of date, uncorrected, and otherwise unreliable. The website data, information, and documents are informational only and are not to be relied upon in any way. So that's Caltrans, that's a disclaimer that UC Berkeley has about their data to Caltrans. And if Minigar and Associates is using the TIMS data, which is injury collisions only for their engineering traffic surveys, it kind of questions like whether this is defensible even, right? Since it was formulated using data that
the TIMS data, the Berkeley data is actually, again, it's driven from the Switter's report.
It's only injury collisions. That's the only thing. It doesn't include property damage only collisions. Not property,
but injury and death. not property damage.
Mhm.
You're right, absolutely,
Mhm.
when it comes to property damage.
Right.
it's not-
But the rates that are calculated, and sorry, I'm putting you on the
No,
spot
no,
also.
no.
It's more of an issue with Minigar and Associates, and not so much you. The collision rates that they use, are those injury only collision rates or are those all collision rates?
All collision rates, it's, separate, when we say property damage, we're not talking about, maybe hitting a fence with property, it's actually cars and that gets in the van with no
Right.
injuries, hopefully.
Well, then
But it
how,
does include, fatal and injury act.
well, then how can you include the calculated collision rate? This is zero, like, I'm looking at one that says 0. If you pull Tim's data, that's injury only collisions and expected collision rate, which is calculated using all collisions. It seems like it's a little bit apples to oranges. It's not apples to apples.
Okay.
Like I think this would be a performance issue with the consultant that they didn't use the right data in their analysis of this. And I would actually go back to them and say, hey, you should give us, you can use South Pasadena police records crash data or use the statewide integrated traffic record system. You don't use this free UC Berkeley data that UC Berkeley is saying has a disclaimer to Caltrans to not use for engineering decisions.
Absolutely, I'm
You know,
with you 100%, Commissioner, and, really, what I will do, it's a matter of me confirming with the consultant and make sure that if they use only TIMS, then obviously, I need to find out why.
Let's figure it out
Well,
now
I'm really
before,
glad you brought it up.
folks challenge speeding
But,
tickets.
What,
You know.
what I would, it's interesting you mentioned this because I'm very interested to find out why, they did not include that because Meniger and Associates are the one that did the previous 2014, 2015 study. And they use the same methodologies they used previously. So I relied on that information as this is the correct data to use, but let me confirm with them and I can get back to you on that. Make sure you got it right.
Okay, yeah, I would recommend going back to them. I think using Switter's data, yeah, like local police reports, even like GAG has a high injury network that I think should be also looked into. Like,
Switter's the only one recognized by the state.
yeah, so Switter's would
Yes.
be like the ideal one to use.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, because I think I'm a little concerned because only 3 streets and they're only going to be lowered to 25. Like I
It's
was,
established new 25, there wasn't there.
sure, you're
for the
lower,
3 streets.
yeah, well, yes, but I think you're not like taking into account that the city has authority to make these decisions now, right? And so there is, like, based on data, you can make those types of informed decisions.
Yes, can you go back to the table, please? Anyone?
I think especially looking at the major arterials.
On the speed, there, any one of these. Okay, so as I was saying earlier, really, take this street here, for example. That's Kenneally. The 85th percentile speed, was measured to be 32 miles per hour. Again, in the old days that we can only go to 30 miles per hour. However, now that we incorporated the AB 45, that allows us to lower speed limit by 5 miles per hour, we went down to 25 on that. Okay, and I'd like to read some excerpt from AB 45 because I think there's some misunderstanding on what is or how is it applicable. It's not really a flat, carte blanche check that you can lower the speed limit by 25 by 5 miles per hour just because you want to lower it because we have the authority to lower it. There are a few issues that with AB 45, and we really still have to meet some of these issues before we can even consider the 45. Let me just quickly read this from my own notes here. AB 45 took effect in January 1st, 2022. However, the implementation was delayed until June 30, 2024. So it wasn't effective until last night. The bill grants Caltrans and local authorities greater flexibility in setting speed limits lower than what is determined by the ENTS methodology. Otherwise specified the 85th percentile that we're referring. However, it requires Caltrans in the next revision of the MUTCD that they have to define high injury speeds and high concentration of accidents for the purpose of permitting the 5 miles per hour reduction. So these are now start bringing the conditions. Caltrans have to define the high injury speed definition, which up until now, by the way, it hasn't been defined. They said they will include it in the next version of the MUTCD coming up in 2025, which is probably going to be 26. But until that, again, I mean, it's really a gray area where you can lower speed limit or you can. Another issue is part of that AB 43. It says that it takes safety-related factors as prescribed by California law, including accident data, which we did, highway and roadway conditions not readily available to drivers, which we did, residential density and pedestrian and bicycle safety. So those factors were considered in the study. One of the important things that a local authority is not authorized to reduce the speed limit by more than 5 miles from the current speed limit, nor below the immediately prior speed limit. So that's really a very important factor. Again, if my prior speed limit was 30 and I lowered it to 25, I cannot lower it 10 to make it 20.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah.
I mean, those are part of the AB 43.
Mhm.
So it's not really just an open check that we can change the speed limit.
Sure, I think what I'm suggesting is go back and look at the data with Switter's data
Okay,
and see if that makes an impact on the analysis.
we'll do that.
Yeah.
Good.
Mhm.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I keep calling you Commissioner. My apologies. Vice Chair Brunel. Commissioner Hernandez,
No, I
questions,
have no
comments?
question. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go last. Commissioner Sharma.
Well, I appreciate the commissioners raising the data set comments. That was really insightful. I guess putting that aside, the study accounts for, it is 58 segments.
Yeah.
That, it accounts for 58 segments. I feel like you can't get more than 5, as soon as you get 5 South Pasadena residents together, you automatically start talking about speed and speed limits on streets and how busy streets are. So that 58 doesn't account for obviously every street in South Pasadena. And, in the public comment at the very beginning, I think her name was Sadie. Sadie was talking about speed on her street. I wrote down Ramona, and I don't think that was one of the 58. I know you can't account for every single one, but then how do you, is there ability to increase the number past 58, or how does?
Yes, go back to the map that we talked. Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's what I was saying. The 58 segments are the ones that did not meet the prima facie speed limit requirement. In other words, what you see here, those little gray ones are local residential streets or business districts that falls under the 25 mile per hour prima facie speed limit for residential neighborhood. When you do those, whenever it's a prima facie speed limit, it's not taken into consideration in any engineering capacity. What we can do, if that's the case, it's totally separate thing, not related to this study, is to do a speed study and see if it really qualifies for traffic calming measures, but not to reduce the speed limit on a residential street. You know what I'm saying? Like a separate speed limit study, say it could warrant traffic mitigation, maybe a speed off or something that would lower speed, but not lowering the speed limit itself on local residential streets. You know what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but how, would you even consider? How would one even consider the local residential streets?
It's defined by the state, by the California Vehicle Code.
So it's only 58 that get evaluated. That's it.
Yes, those that don't fall under the residential street definition, or as we said, the prima facie, I think that was this, yeah. This.
I think what you're saying is there would need to be a special study done to evaluate
It's a
those other
speed
streets,
study.
right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
speed mitigation measures, not a speed
So then you would have to
reduction
take, so
study.
anything beyond 58, you'd have to take case by case and do a speed study.
Anything that falls under the prima facie speed limit, that one goes, yes. Under any one of these, if there's a speeding issue, we have to do a separate speed study and see what kind of traffic calming mitigation can qualify.
Sorry, I have a quick question for you. That I had a question about that slide because there is the zone designations that happens through the California Vehicle Code. It's not necessarily zoning designations that happen through our city zoning. Because it's saying like by 25 mile per hour for a residential as defined by the California Vehicle Code. So within the vehicle code, there's some type of zone designation. I'm asking the questions. I'm not.
There's a definition. Like the business district and the residential district and the school zone. School zone is just really boundaries of, say, about 500 feet from any school building.
Okay.
But for this particular two, business and residential district, yes, they are defined in the vehicle code.
Okay. So I think
Yeah.
so then any area that meets this California Vehicle Code this district designation
Sure.
Can qualify for this prima facie speed limit of 25 miles per hour. That 25 miles per hour even with AB 43 couldn't be, say, reduced to 20 miles per hour.
No.
Because it's based on what's here
No.
right now. But then if we created we can do a study, and through that study, the speed study, we would then be able to exempt it from that zone, right? Because at that point, would it still be a residential zone or be a special speed district or?
That's why
Yeah.
if we do a speed study, that's
Yeah.
completely different than
Okay.
speed limits.
Okay.
So based on that speed study, for example, like when somebody asks for speed cushions or,
Yeah.
that's when you do the speed study.
Okay.
So if we do that speed study and say the 85th percentiles come up to 34 miles per hour, that triggers the fact that, yeah, it could qualify for speed cushions. And we have to further study and make sure that it does meet the requirement for additional traffic calming measures.
Okay.
But again, the speed limit stays the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Anything else?
No, I just wanted to know if the number could go above 58. It sounds like
And,
the answer is no.
Councilman, if you want me to, I have here the vehicle code definitions of the residential district and the business district.
That'd be helpful.
Yeah, the residential section, district is defined in vehicle code section 515. Is, if there's, other than, upon one side of which highway within a distance of a quarter of a mile, the contiguous property fronting therefore is occupied by 13 or more separate dwelling houses. Or on both sides of the street is occupied, within a quarter of a mile is occupied by 60 dwellings on both sides of the street. That's for the definition of the residential district. Business district, however, is defined as, and that's vehicle code section 235, is within 600 feet, there is a 50% or more of the fronting developments are business related. And that's one side of the street. On both sides of the street, and within 300 feet, 50% are business establishments. Okay. So that's why those streets you see, when we say residential, obviously they're all.
Yeah, most of our city would be
Yes.
either business or residential.
Exactly.
So.
So again, going to that map.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry.
No, yeah. So again, that's why all these go on our residential streets in our city or business.
Okay, and you're covered at the moment? Okay, sorry, Commissioner Dunlap.
Thank you, Chair. So I see like on your map, you have Mission, and that's when we talked a lot about that 2 hours tonight, and it's marked as 30 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And then if you go back to that slide we just saw, we saw 25 miles per hour when approaching or passing a posted school zone in a business district or residential district. So I guess the first question would be, does Mission not meet the definition of a business district? And if the answer, if it does meet the definition of a business district, why is
Very
city
good
staff
question.
and Mennegar Associates like not recommending to post that at 25?
Very good question. And actually, Mission Street in particular, it's one of those. We've probably seen it in unoccupied county areas like in East LA where you are on Caesar Chavez Road. You do have a lot of fronting stores, but it's not considered a business district because of the width or the other factors that contribute to it not meeting the definition as mentioned here in the vehicle.
What do you know? I mean, I can look it up now, what the vehicle code language, I'm kind of somewhat familiar with AB 43, but I didn't kind of read through every requirement.
Or
Do you know, can you, like, what the definition of a business district is?
yeah, like I said, from the vehicle code, section 235, a business district is that portion of a highway and the property contiguous thereto upon one side of which highway for a distance of 600 feet, 50% or more of the contiguous property fronting the therefore are occupied building used for business. Upon both sides of the street and within a distance of 300 feet, 50% are those contiguous properties are fronting commercial business.
And we don't think like Mission needs that 600 feet. Like I would think it'd be like, what, 250 feet from Meridian to Diamond, and probably what, another 250 feet down to Mike and Ann's. It's like 500, and then you go all the way
Sounds
down
like
to
it would
Tomato
be
High and
Go to the table where the speed limit.
I was sort of curious what the 85th percentile was.
Yeah, that's what I want to know myself. Where's Mission?
Number 8 looks like.
Mission, Monterey, no, that's not Mission, no, go to the left. That's Meridian.
45.
I'm sorry,
45.
45?
45.
Oh, there you go, thank you. Brent Avenue to Garfield Avenue. The 85th percentile was 35.
But why wouldn't you post that prima facie? 25.
The 58th percentile. Good question.
Yeah, I think I think we should probably take another look at this. And I also noticed, like, if we go back to the map of all the speed limits, first off, it was a little like the colors are very confusing, and I was very concerned when I saw that Fair Oaks Avenue. It looks like it's 40 miles per hour between Monterey and Huntington, but I think that could just be the line weight of the lines underneath, and the red, it just makes it look like it's almost black,
That's 40 miles.
Are there any reductions that we can take because that middle school's there? And I know, isn't there also a prima facie reduction for school zones and playgrounds?
Well, it is within the school zone. Anytime you are within a school zone, again, the school zone is defined like within 500 feet from the school building. You've seen this probably everywhere where you're coming upon a major highway and suddenly you see the 25 miles per hour when school children are present. So even if, say, the speed limit is 40 miles per hour, once you are within the school zone, you'll see the 25 miles per hour.
Okay. And then I guess Fremont, you have I think AB 43, a lot of flexibility for school zone playground zones for 15 or 25. And I had to look to see if that was beyond school zone times. Like Fremont, you have the high school and Holy Family. I don't know if non-public schools count towards that, but it seems like you're recommending 30. I just wondered if that could meet for a prima facie 25 based on the school zone definition.
I mean, for this.
Right. I mean-
Unfortunately, private schools do not qualify for, public funding.
Right, but the high school maybe? Yeah, the high school.
Where?
Right there.
Is that a high school?
Right,
Oh, yeah.
that's high school.
But
Okay, but let me tell you something.
Yeah.
High school do not qualify for speeding, by the way.
okay,
Yes, sir.
I think we should.
High schools and private schools.
So I don't.
You're old enough to do.
Yeah. I don't think this is ready to go to council yet.
Okay.
I think there's some issue.
I got the two major issues, I guess, the
Right.
traffic, accident source.
Yeah.
Put it this way.
And
Winners.
I mean, I've worked with crash data. I do it every single day and I'm blue in the face trying to explain to people. I love UC Berkeley 10s because it makes data accessible, but there are a lot of limitations that people use it without knowing the limitations. And every week I'm having to explain to people the difference between like UC Berkeley 10s and Switter's data. So address that. And I think it would also be helpful to see the chart that you showed that showed the comparison between the existing and.
Yeah, anyone of those.
Right.
tables.
And then if we could have a clearer definition of the business district, because I think if mission isn't meeting the definition of business district, then what is?
Yes, I have to really, these are two major issues that I would definitely go
Okay.
back to the consultant to check. Again, the Switter's report and the mission in particular, because this is really a clear definition from the vehicle code, and I want to verify why it was. And again, keep in mind, that was the existing speed limit from the previous study.
Mm-hmm.
So very interesting that this was not considered a business district
Yeah.
10 years ago.
And
I'm curious, like.
and I think for some reason, I think that the guidance is already out there on safety corridors. I was trying to look for it. I know that the
Yeah.
city of, and if I recall, it's up to 25% of the road network in a city that experiences higher rates of crashes. And a lot of cities that have high injury networks are actually developing two. They're doing one for their high injury network for their safety planning, and then they're doing one for their speed limit setting, because high injury networks tend to be like 50% of crashes on 4% of streets or something like that. But a safety corridor, I think they can go up to 25% of their roadways. So a lot of jurisdictions are increasing their high injury network to meet that 25%. I think that guidance is out there somewhere.
Yeah,
Even though it's not in the MUTC, it's probably
Well,
some directive. Yeah.
again, I mean, the legal, AB 42 requires that the state comes up with a clear definition. That's why, again, there's
Yeah.
a lot of reluctance. And actually, that's what I was trying to say earlier, is there is a misconception because not really, all of us probably have a different view of AB 43. So it's not really a question of like, yes, because we think it's high injury street, then we should do that. Let's keep in mind, I mean, when we follow all these laws, really, at the end of the day, it's really what can we defend in the court.
Sure.
Right.
I think also just really quick, if this is going to council, it's not ready right now,
Sure.
okay, yes, but being able to describe it in a way that people really understand, like what are the limitations for the new state law on cities? Why are you making decisions in the way that you are? Being able to describe it to folks in very clear and plain language would be helpful. Because
Okay,
people don't understand the complexities of this.
sure.
Yeah.
Anything else, Commissioner Dunlap?
Yeah, that's it. I think it'd be good to kind of see it again. And
All right,
Commissioner Kerwin?
no, thank you. No comment.
Okay, my turn. Couple of small things and a big thing.
Okay.
When we talk about radar speed survey, what exactly are they doing? And was that done for all 58 segments? And what
it's a
exactly,
measuring speed of cars. going.
do they bring out a trailer that's, how is it physically done? Do you know?
No, they use the same equipment used by the police, radar guns.
Oh, there's someone out there.
Yes, sitting there, they take a sample of 100 cars. Based on 100%.
Okay. Second question, or it's a comment actually. So it's interesting looking at the expected collision rates, which I guess are maybe not 100% accurate or complete. It was very interesting to look at, to compare the different segments. And what really struck me is Orange Grove. Between Columbia and the freeway, it was at a 1.61, which was the highest by far number of all the segments measured. The next closest were like 1.07 and lower. It's an observation, it's not, but it just further demonstrated to me how many safety issues there are in that corridor. I mean, we see accidents almost every week there. And I'm just highlighting that there's a need to do something on Orange Grove. Because there are way too many accidents and we're not doing anything about it. That may be not part of this survey and adjusting the speed limit. That's a different problem. It's a street design problem, but I think it's something we really need to look at. For this project, and this is a pylon. So Arroyo Drive. So Arroyo Drive from the northern city limit, which I think it's San Pasqual Drive, something like that, all the way south to, I think it ends at, what is it there? Is it Monterey or Pasadena? It's Pasadena. So Arroyo Drive is residential. One side of the street is all homes. The other side of the street is hillside, and it drops down to the Arroyo Fields. There are multiple intersections, none of which is controlled. We've heard multiple times from residents concerned about speeds on the street. And the response has been, well, just wait. We're going to be doing a survey because the police go out. It's signed at 35 miles an hour, which is borderline insanity to me. It's a completely residential street. It's a collector, I believe. And people go 35 to 40, easy. Residents have been very concerned, have come in from time to time, written about it. What's beyond me is how the survey or the study could say, well, we're going to keep it at 35. What was interesting to me is the 85th percentile for that stretch is 34. The 85th percentile for Oliver, which is one of the three segments where Miniger suggests posting 25, the 85th percentile for Oliver is 33. So for Oliver, the recommendation is to drop it to 25, which makes perfect sense to me. I have no problem with it. But for Arroyo, the recommendation is to keep it at 35, when the 85th percentile speed is 1 mile an hour difference.
Yeah, why didn't they round down?
That and it's a street where it's residential frontage, 0 sidewalks. The same justifications that were used to make adjustments for other segments.
I'm sorry, thinking about this section of Arroyo.
That was 22.
Oh, I looked at the wrong thing. Okay, thank you for clarifying. So I can clarify. So my concern is there where we have known concerns and problems, it's completely residential. It's uncontrolled from beginning to end. They're keeping it at 35. And we've had multiple concerns regarding safety issues on that street. So I'm wondering why we aren't using the justifications we used in other places to drop 5 miles an hour. We're not doing it there. And I was mistaken about Oliver.
No, because this one, and the mark, they did say nearest 5 miles per hour increment to the 85th percentile was selected.
But you can round down.
Right, they went down.
Yeah, and again, that's something we can take back to the consultant too.
Because in addition to the fact it's residential, it's used, of course, not in addition to cars, pedestrians, cyclists, and there are one side of the street has no sidewalks. So it's very dangerous. And like I said, it's posted at 35, so people go 40 and don't get tickets. So if there is a way we could take a look at that and see if we can at least drop it to 30. And so it's interesting is Fremont, Fair Oaks, Orange Grove, they're 30 or more. South of Monterey, Fair Oaks is more, but they're 30 miles an hour. But yet Arroyo Drive, which is 100% residential, right, is posted 5 miles an hour higher.
You know, I think it might be related to how the vehicle code designates a residential area. Because one of the things that he talked about was it being both sides of the street. He also talked about how many houses were in a given stretch. And so because the residential density of Arroyo is likely significantly less than that of Fremont, as far as like the lot size and spaces between residences, it might meet a higher speed threshold because of that. Would be what I suspect based on what I saw in the vehicle code, but this is my first time hearing it.
Yeah.
So
I'm just, it's beyond shocking.
Discuss it with the.
And again, this is something that's been highlighted to us multiple times, so
We need to.
this is our opportunity to make these kinds of adjustments, as long as it's permissible.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Sure.
Any council member?
Yeah, I have one last point as it pertains to this, and this is kind of like, it's the enforcement side of it. And so like, let's say we are successful in getting these numbers dropped down. The next question is, well, then how do we enforce it? Right? It's like, how are we currently enforcing the signs and the speed limits that we currently have? And what methodology can we reasonably have given our current staffing levels, given, those types of hurdles. And so, I'm always mindful of like saying, let's do this thing, if at the end of the day, we can't enforce it anyway, And so I'm kind of, I always like if we can figure out, I really like the idea of like having design elements that encourage people to slow down, because then it's, something that can hopefully shape people's behavior a little better. And it's less of trying to be there with a presence that costs money and pension and all the rest of it.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember, because this is really a very good point you're bringing about enforcement of the law. And sometimes when it's really very low to the point where it causes really motorists to simply disobey those rules. The idea of speed limit sign, people believe once you put that speed limit, everybody's gonna slow down, which is not the case. I mean, no matter how lower we lower it or not, it's still gonna be really enforcement that will enforce that speed limit. The Engineering and Track Survey authorizes the police to use radar guns rather than pace them or something like that. One of the big public misconceptions of the speed limit, and I really want to talk about this because it's probably going to be raised. Speed limits around schools at 25 miles per hour. Not few years ago, 25 years ago, Caltrans came up with this great idea, lower school speed limit to 15 miles per hour. And to the public, it sounded beautiful. Yeah, everybody's gonna start driving 15 miles per hour in front of the school. At that time, I was working in LA County Public Works, and we were one of the leading agencies that went there, changed all the speed limit signs on near schools to 15 miles per hour. 6 months later, we got the sheriff telling us to remove them. We cannot enforce them anymore. And they cannot even defend them in court. Because while he's giving the person a ticket for not doing 15 miles per hour, 5 other cars are going 25 and 35 miles per hour. So there is a big issue like the basic speed law tells you drive under the prevailing condition of the road. So if 25 miles per hour are gonna do the job, why make it a lot less where it's really not gonna make any change? It's gonna probably create more road outrage. And also keep in mind those speed limits in your school. This is when school children are present from 7:30 to 3:30. So when children are in school at 10 o'clock in the classroom, do you really expect people driving 15 miles per hour while passing the school zone? that will be like an 8-hour restriction. While it's only really effective for half an hour morning and half an hour afternoon pickup. So those are the things like, again, when you talk about 40 or lower speed limit, as I mentioned on the factors or consideration we take, there's a lot of things that you take into consideration. Am I making the road really safer by creating outrage if I'm really lowering it to the point like, no point of driving 15 miles per hour if you don't really need to, but you don't have to drive 75 miles either. So the 25, and that's even hard to enforce, but it's the common thing. People used to it, and a lot of parents and people that goes by the school do obey that 25.
I'm gonna just make a counterpoint really quick to that.
Go
So, yeah, everything you said is very logical, makes sense. So one of the prior versions of this commission, I think it was MTIC version, first cycle. We put together a neighborhood traffic management program proposed, which went through a couple of revisions and then sort of has sat. And I know it looks like it's something that we're gonna be picking up again over the next year, which is great. And it has in it a lot of wonderful tools and resources for controlling speeds on streets because our police resources are very low. Those things cost money and take a long time to get implemented. In the meantime, it seems to me if we can reasonably lower a speed limit on a street to set an expectation, understanding it's going to be violated, but I'd rather somebody go 30 and a 25, right, than 40 and a 35 or whatever the situation happens to be. At least you're setting some kind of an expectation, right? Instead of just saying, well, it's not going to be enforced, so let's just leave it the way it is. Right, because what goes on some of our streets, it's criminal, right? And I was at Party Gras and multiple people came up to me saying, I want speed humps, right? I'm like, amen, right? But that's not something that happens overnight. And if this is a tool that we can legally use to control speeds at least somewhat, I'd rather take advantage of it than saying, oh, it's not going to make a big difference and then lose the opportunity. That's my thought. And even if we can't get the police in all these hot spots daily, weekly, monthly, when they are there, they can write tickets. So that's sort of the way I look at it.
Yeah, we at least try.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not to say we throw our hands up and say, well, then forget it,
Right.
anything. It's just, we have to make sure that we're doing things in a way that, we'll definitely try. It's just, the sign isn't the only thing we can do.
No.
It doesn't stop there as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, signs actually affect pedestrians more than ever because the other counter argument about this one is if I lower the speed below what's reasonable, I'm creating a false sense of security. And false sense of security is more dangerous because that's going to affect bicycle and pedestrian more than cars. So there's really two ways to do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I would say one thing this commission's demonstrated, I think we're all reasonable people. I don't think what we're suggesting is to do anything that's, extraordinary. But if we have the ability to do something.
No, I will, and actually, again, with all the comments I have today, I will take it back to the consultant, go over all these issues, clarify what we need to clarify, and I will discuss the fact like, okay, these are the notes, what can we do here? And again, if they lower it, it becomes an
Yes.
And Charles Trevino also will be absent for this.
Okay,
Board.
All right.
So majority, approves the motion, so.
Oh,
we will
that's a
go
relief. Great, thank you, Anna. Item 7, City Council Liaison Communications, Member Ferguson.
Hey, went to some conferences, GAG, they have some money available for, kind of like art projects that do with like intersections and, might be something worth, exploring and considering. So I'll just make sure to email some of that information over to Commission Chair. So, now that we have a Commission Chair. And so, so yeah, that's about it. I'll try to keep this brief as possible.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thanks very much. Commissioner Communications, item 8. Commissioner Kerwin, anything you wanna?
Well,
Sure.
actually, to Councilmember Ferguson's point, the curb bulb outs, painted curb bulb outs, I think is something that, we should look into more. I'm interested why we don't do more of them. I noticed we did, curb ramp at Fairview, across from the library. There's been some others. I know, the public comments we've been hearing about around Arroyo Vista, some of the safety improvements. Why, one thing that would make a big difference would be just a painted curb bulb out, where currently there's cars that park right up to the corner, or there's crosswalks that are, unnecessarily wide, where just having a painted, at least, I mean, a permanent curb bulb out would be a better improvement, but in the meantime, at least, a painted curb bulb, I think, would make a nice safety improvement. And there are some that are artistic and decorative that, certainly Seattle, DOT has done, and other places that I've seen, do that are kind of fun and catch your attention, provide a added, safety benefit. So, that's my main comment. And then the other is just, if there's any way we can push any of the Mission Street, work forward. We don't have to do the full million, but at least if there's the 200 and or $50,000 portion that starts the design and public works, public outreach portion, I think we should try to prioritize pushing that effort forward.
Okay,
That's it.
okay, thank you. Commissioner Dunlap.
No major comments, just appreciate Public Works staff for accommodating this meeting and, the library, community center, or what is it, the community room? The community room, I know it was a logistical and scheduling nightmare, so they made it happen, and I kind of enjoyed this sort of intimate roundtable workshop atmosphere, as opposed to being up on the city council chambers and speaking out. So, appreciate everyone on Ted, your team's hard work.
Thank you, Commissioner Sharma.
Same, just gratitude to the staff for accommodating the location and the late hour for this really helpful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hernandez. Anything further?
I'm sick and tired. I want to go home.
Vice Chair.
Oh, thank you guys. It's been so late.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know.
Vice Chair Brunel.
Yeah,
anything
thank
else?
you so much, staff and everyone. Very quickly, I know there was several public comments. I think it might be interesting for the city to consider like a rapid response program. If there are concerns or collisions, injuries that happen, go out and do a site assessment, look at potential treatments that might happen. I know that involves like staff time. But it is something that can be really beneficial and can really help like address some of the concerns from folks.
Great comment. Thank you. I'll just wrap it up. It's late. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Oh, yeah, but I gotta finish mine first. Yeah, no, I won't forget you, Ted.
If we don't do them, then.
Yeah, so thank you to everybody. Thank you to staff. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for fact checking me, Michael. And thank you to Ted and Bassam for listening, and being so, kind and gracious. With that, I will turn it over to staff.
No more. I'm sure glad I didn't put drinking.
Yes, there's more. Michael Bartanian, one here, Public Works. Thank you for staying with us this evening. Thank you for thanking us for staying this evening. quick update is we have some street improvement projects coming. You probably saw a slurry seal project was awarded. That's a 6 mile, approximately center line mile slurry project. Today's Tuesday still. Yesterday, we advertised a, approximately $8 million street improvement project. That's for rehabilitation, water line improvements. You probably saw we wrapped up the Meridian Avenue curb ramps that we installed, and there's a bunch more citywide. So we have a lot of projects that are coming down the pipeline. So excited to share that with you as we get closer and closer to construction. Ted mentioned the RFPs. I'm just thinking of them on the top of my head, but those are also coming down within the year, assuming procurement time for those RFPs don't take too long.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Yes, Paul.
Okay. So, two quick announcements. So NRC meeting next week, we'll be reviewing the street ordinance, and it's like, how to go about people, looking to modify that ordinance, and so this is the second step. Depending on how that goes, we expect to bring the street ordinance before you on June 11th during your next meeting, as well as a capital improvement program discussion based on the budget coming. Next Wednesday, the 28th, in this room, we'll be having an environmental impact report scoping meeting on our San Pasquale wetland project. So we had done an initial environmental study, we're moving into environmental impact report, so if you're interested in contributing to that, we'll be in this room next Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. Lastly, this is my last commission meeting with you all. I'm actually moving on to another opportunity. You may know this, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. I just want to thank this commission and actually thank the community as a whole. This has been a really pivotal opportunity for me and my career to be the public works director here. Absolute privilege to be working with all the community members of this commission and other commissions over the last few years. I'm really going to miss South Pasadena for many, many reasons. The projects in particular, because it's really just an amazing opportunity to rebuild a city. And so I'm very sad about it. We can talk after the meeting if you prefer, but I know it's late. But just want to say thank you again to all the support that this commission and prior commissions have provided to me and the staff. We're really grateful. So thank you, and that's it.
Well, thanks a lot, Ted. I just really, it's crazy late. I just want to thank Ted for being such a great partner for so many years, or feels like a lot of years. I consider you a friend. You've been so easy to work with. Friendly, tough but not too tough, smart, engaged, and you care, right? And that really makes a big difference. And you'll be sorely missed. I'm welling up, so I'm going to stop. But I wish you the best of luck as you go down your path. And I know you're going to be successful no matter where you are. It's devastating to me. But anyway, congratulations to you. You've been terrific. When is your last day with the city?
So I did send a notice to try to give something for June 5th.
Okay. We've still got time.
A few more weeks.
All right. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
With that, I can't think of anything else, so I'll call this meeting adjourned. Right? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.